Hey chat, how's it going? Welcome to a very special stream here today. Let me turn down the music a little bit. How are you all doing, chat? I am so excited today, not only because I'm going to be getting my hands on FUZE for the first time, but also because in just a couple of minutes we'll be joined by Dave from the FUZE team, who is going to very kindly guide me through getting started with FUZE. I've been excited about this for a little while, especially because, as many of you know, I am a big fan of Game Builder Garage, and many a time I've been asked, what could a possible route beyond GBG be for those of you who are ready to kind of spread your programming wings a little bit. So hopefully Dave will be able to show me the ropes here with FUZE⁴.
Fingers crossed.
Hey Dave.
I'm here. Hello.
Good to see you.
It is great to be here, Dom. Thank you very much for having me. Of course.
It is a pleasure to have you on stream today. Before we get started, as is tradition, I'm going to say a few hellos to chat, and then we're going to dive right into it. So I'm going to scroll up a little bit and see who's here. Good to see you, Mr. O. Good to see you, Disco, Chalupa Joe, Arch, Voxy, Curb, DRN Makes, FUZE Arena. Who's that? Lucian Vela.
I don't trust them.
Chat, if you may have noticed, FUZE Arena is in the chat as well. So I guess if Dave wants to send anything during the stream via chat, keep your eye out for the FUZE Arena account as well. Coma Nomad, Rex, Nintendo Plush, Lucian Vela, The Green Waddle D, RJ the Great, Yeen, good to see Yeen, Abe, Freezer, Box Kids Workshop, Super Sus, and some random gaming channel. If I missed you, apologies. Welcome to the stream. Yes, as I mentioned at the start, we're going to be looking at FUZE⁴, and Dave from the FUZE team is joining me today. Dave, thank you so much for taking time out of your Sunday to be here to show me around FUZE today.
Oh, you're very, very welcome. It's a pleasure and a privilege, to be honest. It's the first time that we've done something like this, so I'm very excited, naturally. And I couldn't have picked a better channel and a better reason to do such a stream. So yeah, it's very, very cool all round. I'm very happy to be here, Dom.
That's incredibly kind of you to say. I've got FUZE⁴ open on my Switch, so I'm going to try switching over to that now. There we go. Look at this. I chose, I forget what the name of this color scheme is, but I did go in and I personally picked my color scheme for the menu here. I love that we can change through the themes as well.
Yeah, I should remember the name for that one. It's not called Terminal, is it? No.
Let me see if
I really like that one. That's actually usually the one I have, but
I went for this one because it felt appropriate for some late night coding sessions. You know, it's low glare on the old eyes.
It reminds me of I trust that you've played the game Earthbound.
Absolutely, yeah.
It reminds me of the text boxes in that
it's
game.
like the mint choc chip one.
Yeah, there's that too.
Minimalist, okay. There we go. And yeah, I like the keyboard on this one too.
Yeah, the keyboard is independent. That's a nice, that's the keyboard I use as well. It's a little bit more embellished than the other keyboards.
Yeah, that one's definitely my favorite. See, I might have a quick scroll through the themes. I do like FUZE Retro 1. I love the blue.
It's a Commodore 64 sort of inspired color scheme.
Yeah, you can really, really feel it.
There's a couple of retro computer inspired ones.
Yeah, the little rainbow tag on this one for Retro 2.
It's a really important question actually in the chat, so I'm just going to field that if you don't mind.
Yeah, of course.
Mr. Observador. Yes, you absolutely can use a USB keyboard to write, and if you couldn't, that'd be a bit of an embarrassment, really.
I do have a USB keyboard. Oops, sorry, Dave, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, I beg your pardon. You go ahead.
I do have a USB keyboard hooked up as well,
Yes.
So I'll be making good use of that too. All right, sorry, I immediately got distracted by prettifying my UI here. So, Dave, is this a good place to start the main screen here, do you think?
suppose it's as good a place as any. There's one thing that a brand new user would see if they were booting up FUZE for the first time, which is not apparent right now. But that's you get these tutorial panels that appear for the first time, and it will guide you through, all of these different sections in the main menu. It'll come up with a little explanation of what each of these things do, and you can then choose to disable that and move on with it. But I mean, we don't really need the tutorial text in this because you've got me to explain things, and the panels are fairly self-explanatory as well. But yeah, we can do everything from here. We can start a new program. We can browse the media. We can go to the tutorials. We can adjust the UI as we've already experimented with, and we can access the share section as well. So it depends where you want to go, really.
Beautiful. I'll just take a moment to say if anybody has any questions either for me or for Dave in chat, feel free to just ask away. No need to ask permission first. Fire them my way and I'll keep my eyes on chat, and I believe Dave's got the chat up as well. So as we're going along, when we can, we'll be definitely answering any questions that you might have. Cool. So yeah, we first time boot, you'll have a couple of tutorial panels and then you're presented with the main menu here. So, where shall we head to first?
I've seen some great comments about the two of us trying to out-politeness each other.
Chat is always incredible. Chat is you'll see some banger comments today. I'm sure of it.
Oh, there's a few already that I'd like to answer actually. FUZE caught my eye recently with Funky Bowling coming out. That's really cool to hear. Just so happy to hear that. But main passion is making RPGs. Would FUZE be a good platform for me to make them? And I would say yes, definitely. Especially something like a 2D sort of classic JRPG type. There's a lot of assets in FUZE that are just tailor-made for that exact application. So I think you would certainly not be disappointed if that's what you wanted to get out of FUZE.
It's worth mentioning as well. I believe that was Kerr that asked that question, and Kerr has been making some incredible RPGs. So it would be great to see what they were able to do on other platforms as well, if that's what they chose.
Cool. Yeah,
they are fantastic at it.
Yeah, so I suppose the best place to get started. Let's go to the programs section.
Okay.
Of the main menu. Because there's a couple of things here that we should take a look at. So this is default loaded into your save data. And you can navigate between these two panels here using the L and R buttons on the Joy-Con, or on the USB controller, you can press the R and L keys.
Okay.
If you press L, then that will take you to the default installed FUZE projects. So these are just a handful of various games and little visual demos, and just bits and bobs to show off a couple of techniques and to see what you can do. The ones at the top are the more sort of complete game programs, and then as they go further down, they become more just like visual demos or sort of demonstrations of particular functions and mechanics, within the language. So, I mean, if you wanted to sort of show a couple of these just to see what's possible, then that would be pretty cool. I'd be intrigued to see what sort of a score you could get on a couple of these.
All right. Actually. Okay. Well,
I know that 3D Crazy Shooter is always a favorite. Whenever we do a workshop and we have a section of playing the games, everyone usually wants to play 3D Crazy Shooter because it's a 3D game and it's a nice thing to see. And it should also, I'm hoping that people in the chat would, if they are educated in their retro games catalog, then they will know the game that inspired me to write this one.
So this is your creation here on 3D Crazy Shooter.
3D Crazy Shooter is one of mine. Yeah, wow. I wrote Crazy Shooter, Ninja Scroll, Asteroid Navigator, and FUZE Bounce.
Wow, nice. Okay. Well, I recognize the basis for 3D Crazy Shooter definitely from the screenshot. So, I mean, the checkerboard floor is a strong hint, I think, towards it. But I'll let chat figure it out as well.
Oh, that's good. I'm glad to hear that you know it. I'm glad to hear you know it.
Shall we get started with Super Mega Arena Blaster and kind of move along? We'll do a couple of these.
We can do, yeah. The reason I'd want to leave that one, at least for a couple, because it's actually probably the best one.
Okay, all right. Shall I get started with 3D Crazy Shooter then?
Yeah, you might as well.
Okay,
yeah.
All right, let's do it.
Okay, cool. So it's just a good hint at, just some sort of silly, You have to shoot down random assets, random 3D models from the media library. So to run a program, I suppose I should tell you that.
Yep.
You press the plus button. If
Okay.
you look at the command bar at the bottom of the screen, that is usually a good place to be looking, because that will update live as you do various things. There are a few different like button modifiers in FUZE that allow you to do various different things,
Okay.
and it's always on the command bar there.
All right. I'll run it, and I think while I'm playing through this, it might be a good time if you've spotted any questions as well to answer a few. All right, here we go. Wish me luck, chat.
Good luck, yeah. So it's just to let you know, it's the A button to. We've got the frame rate counter actually up there as well, which is we can go into a bit of that, but that is optional. You can turn that on or off.
Okay.
It's an interesting thing to look at actually, and it's often actually essential if you want to really understand the impact that something that you've implemented is having on your code. Then you need to have a look at that.
I believe that was something that I turned on myself, right? As opposed to a default.
It might have been. It shouldn't be on by default. It's a setting in the preferences.
Okay.
I don't believe it's on by default. If it is, then that is a surprise to me. So
No, I think I may have gone fiddling through some menus in my preparation. This is a tune, by the way.
Oh, thank you very much. That's one of my compositions.
Wow, nice.
I'm very happy to hear that. So you can either tap A to fire, or you can hold down, and you've got to blast this big flying steak.
Oh yeah.
There you go. Don't get hit by the flying hospital. Yes, okay. The chat has already pulled up that it is Space Harrier.
Absolutely.
Yeah, one of my favourite games as a kid. This Space Harrier was so, and actually the music is also very much inspired by. There's a chord progression in there that is very much inspired by the chord progressions in Space Harrier.
Incredible. Game's a little bit loud. Apologies, chat. Let me just adjust that for you.
I'm going to catch up with these questions here. So, some random gaming channel questions, Dave. How does profit share work if someone makes a game in FUZE and publish it? It's something that we would discuss with each author. Obviously, I'm not really at liberty to divulge all of that information, but it is something that is discussed on a case-by-case basis. But it's I think I'd be very, very surprised if anyone found it any less than an exciting opportunity. I'll say that we're very sort of fair and nice people, so we're not just profit hungry, evil corporate game publishers. But yes,
it totally makes sense. That would be
any more details.
It would totally make sense that would be handled kind of on a per case basis, especially with it being such a new thing for you at FUZE as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a bunch of people in the FUZE community who are really excited by this. I mean, I think everybody is, but I think that there's a really sort of a decent selection of people who are. Well, I'm really eager to see what sort of things they're making to the end of Made with FUZE. There's some incredible programmers in the FUZE community, and the creativity is absolutely off the charts, as I know it is in your community as well. It's always amazing to see. There's one more. Are there tutorials about the programming language? Is there any visual coding? Can you share and get codes, textures, effects, BGM, etc.? The program, so FUZE contains a lot of tutorial content. It is all text, and you can actually take a look at this just from the main menu, or you can actually bring it up and look at it like in a picture-in-picture mode when you're writing code. You can copy and paste examples from the tutorials right into the code editor, and you can see what they do, and it will sort of take you through all of the core concepts. It will go much more in detail than I imagine we're going to go into today, because we haven't got all the time in the world, and coding is a sufficiently deep enough topic to warrant a lot of tutorial content. But also to supplement that, we have a lot of tutorial content on our YouTube channel. We have the FUZE Arena forum community as well, and a Discord server, which is full of people all helping each other. And it is all tutorials all the way down, really. So yes, absolutely. There's no visual coding. It is text coding, because the whole idea of FUZE, it's kind of the ethos of why we created the company, is to make real text coding as accessible as we can for beginners that want to get into it. Because visual coding is fantastic, of course. I mean, we're not here to disparage anything, but at some point, if you want to be a programmer in a professional setting, you're going to have to learn the text language. And it's a very nice stepping stone to have something like Fuse to take you from the likes of, Blockly, Purple Mash, Scratch, GBG, these sorts of visual-based languages, into something like Python or C or JavaScript or something more industry standard. And so that is the idea behind Fuse. It's text-based coding, but it is really accessible, and it doesn't sort of penalize you for making mistakes that a lot of professional languages do, that kind of really increase the barrier to entry. And so the idea is to lower the barrier to entry always. And quickly, are there any plans for a 3D model editor, and are there any updates coming soon? I'm not going to say for absolute certain, when updates are planned, because it's always just, we've got a million things sort of going on, and I don't want to say anything concrete that will then, come back and bite me later. But a 3D model editor is absolutely something that we're very interested in, as is a music editor. It's one thing that we don't have as well, although it is possible to compose your own music using code itself, and you can also create your own 3D models by combining 3D primitives in code and then grouping them together. You can get very, very creative. You can also kind of create your own textures in 3D by using our terrain functions. Oh, I can see Dom's now getting the hang of this. Okay, we're building up some speed.
I've been training while you've been answering questions. Yeah. I just want to interrupt and say the day-night cycle, such a nice touch. It really gives a sense of progression.
Yeah, it's whenever it happens, things are getting tougher. So you know that it's something to watch out for. You'll notice that there's now a lot more rocks, trees, and things doing. And
definitely.
Sure. Very respectable.
I just want to reassure chat as well that there will be plenty of opportunities as we're going along to answer some questions. And I think as we go through the progression of what we've got planned today, some of those questions might be naturally answered. But I can see a few people have just arrived, so I'll just say very quickly. Dave from the Fuse team is here with me today, who's going to be showing me the ropes when it comes to how to create something in Fuse for Nintendo Switch. So I think if I hop out of this one now, is that minus on the...
Press plus to exit the program.
Plus, got it. Okie doke.
And then minus returns you to the main menu from here. Yeah.
That was super, super fun to play. I loved the Space Harrier influence, and the difficulty ramps up really, really nicely on that one as well. It feels tense once you start to get that speed.
I've never seen anybody get past my high score, if I'm going to just sort of plug my own skills there.
Which is?
I've 26,600.
Oof. Nice.
And
that is some serious.
Enabling, God mode or anything, which you obviously can do. I mean, you can just go into the code and just change the variables, and then you're invincible. So, yes, you can do that, but in a legit playthrough, it's hard to get. I've never managed to get close since then. So,
yeah, nice. All right, do we want to maybe go back and play another one at the end of the session? Shall we jump in? Does that make sense? You think?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, otherwise we're going to be playing games all night.
Also, I just spotted Scrubs in chat saying, "Is that a challenge?" referring to the high score.
Scrubs, it absolutely is a challenge, and if anyone can achieve it, I know it's you. And it's great to see you, Scrubs.
Yeah, always nice to see Scrubs in chat. Okay, right. So let's say I've booted up fresh this for the first time, and I'm itching to have a play. I've looked through some of the basic tutorials, perhaps, and where would the first port of call be?
Okay, so are we assuming then that you've gone through a couple of the first tutorials, or shall we just sort of take you through?
Maybe we can go from dot. Yes, that might make sense. From scratch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let's just show a couple of things. I mean, because I'm going to be honest, I'm not very versed in GBG.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you're going to know a lot more than me on that. Like if I show you something, then I imagine you're going to go, yeah. So in GBG, it's like this.
Yeah.
And if at any point you say like, oh, I'm wondering how would you do this in Game Builder Garage? You do it this way. Let me know, and I'll see what I can come up with.
Absolutely.
But I think that when you're looking at something like Fuse, there's just a few things that are sort of very different, I'd imagine.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just good to get a basic idea of these things. So if we go into programs, we can start a new project, and you can just sort of name this as and what you please.
Okay. Let's call it stream game.
Sure.
Okie doke.
And then it's either enter or plus. Yeah, you can enter you can sign your name to it.
Keeping it simple.
These are all optional fields as well, and you don't actually have to write anything for these descriptions, but it's it's nice to have.
Yeah.
And then it's actually plus on this one because the enter key allows you to enter multiple lines, so you can have line breaks in your description.
Got it. Okay. Project created.
Yeah. So obviously it's brought up the keyboard automatically. You can get rid of this using Control K, or you can click the left stick on the Joy-Con. If you're using a USB keyboard, then it's not really necessary to have it on screen.
Nice. So we get a good bit of real estate.
Yes, true. Yeah, and I will say about the zooming function, because it's quite helpful to know. If you hold down ZL, that turns the right stick into zoom. So if you hold down ZL and press up, or like push up on the right stick, it will zoom. And then similarly, down is going to go down.
Perfect. Okay.
Just a nice and easy way. You can also do it with Control plus and minus on the keyboard, but that one's an incremental thing. It's easiest to do it on the Joy-Cons.
Got it.
Okay, so a blank code editor is quite an intimidating thing, right? It's like a blank canvas, and especially if you don't really know what you're doing, it can be quite a tricky thing to see. And there's one thing which I would say straight away, and I don't want this to sound in any way sort of disheartening, but you have to just reduce expectations down to just sort of being happy with learning little bits of progress at a time. Because at the end of the day, we're learning how to code. And so it's not going to be the case that you can just sort of type a couple of words and obviously and a game appears on screen. Once you know a couple of tricks and things to do, it is amazing how quickly and in how little code you can make something sort of start happening. But when learning something like this, you sort of have to move in small progressive bits. And every little improvement that you make, every little bit of knowledge that you acquire it's a big achievement, and it should be something that you're very proud of. I would like to say.
Yeah, completely understand that. Anything like this is learning a new process and taking things one step at a time, and not expecting to be building a complete thing in the first go. I think anyone that's worked on a project over a long period of time, and I don't just mean creating an outcome, I also just mean starting something new and trying something new. It's always a step at a time, baby step at a time.
That's right. I mean, I liken it to a lot of things. Like, if you I say this to the kids at the workshops that I teach. Obviously, actually, I might as well say, because people don't know. I mean, one part of my job is that I go all over the country taking Nintendo Switches into schools, and we do coding workshops in schools to supplement and enhance their coding curriculum, because a lot of sort of primary schools feel quite overwhelmed by the coding curriculum, and they're not really sure how to bolster the learning. And so we sort of answer that question for them, and we go in there obviously with 30 Nintendo Switches, and it's great fun. And I mean, what I'm going to be immediately engaged by, here's your Nintendo Switch for the day, let's do some coding.
Automatically the coolest teacher ever if you bring in a Nintendo Switch.
Yeah, I mean, I do feel it's a little bit unfair, because when the teachers say like, "Oh, I've never seen them this engaged," it's like, yeah, well, you don't bring in Nintendo Switches every day, so maybe I've got a bit of an advantage. But yeah, so I say to them, if you're going to learn the piano, you don't just sit down at a piano and just expect to be able to play, Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata in 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Right? It's going to take you some time, and every single thing that you learn and improve with, it's your personal journey. You're not measuring yourself against other people. This is all about you. I mean, it's obviously going to be very similar in something like GPG as well. Anyway, right, it's enough chatting. There's one concept. Well, there are three concepts that I think are absolutely fundamental to coding. And I imagine that these are going to all have their analogs in visual coding as well. But before we really can, get off the ground, we need to understand what a loop is, what variables are, and what if statements are, what conditional statements are. So loops, variables, if statements. And these three things make up the core building blocks, the fundamental aspects of all programming. And even very complex programs can be reduced down to these three ideas. I mean, and oftentimes the more advanced concepts are just ways of sort of doing those basic things, but a little bit more efficiently. So if you get your head around these three things, it is fundamental. It's really helpful.
Okay.
So we'll start with a loop, if that's okay with you, Dom.
Absolutely.
Great. Okay. Now I noticed that you had done a tutorial project already, and it probably involved a loop. So if you know how to write a loop in Fuse, then go right ahead. If you don't, it's just two words. You write loop, and then you press enter, and you write the word repeat. And so you'll notice that when it finishes a word, it will turn a color. And this is the syntax highlighting. And it will just let you know if you've spelled things correctly. So it's quite an easy thing to see. Oh, okay, I've not spelled this correctly. Fuse is not case sensitive. So you could spell that, not spell it however you want, sorry. You could use whatever case you want. Yeah, absolutely. It's not going to have a problem with it. And it's also not space sensitive either. So if you went to the beginning of the repeat line, for instance, right, and you pressed space like a few times, right now, a lot of other programming languages, they're immediately going to have a problem with something like this. As soon as you sort of go out of the mold, things are, they're not recognized anymore. But Fuse really doesn't care, and so it's. Whilst I am going to be a bit of a stickler for our formatting, and we should demonstrate well-formatted code and all that, it actually doesn't care. It's very, very forgiving. And this is what I mean by lowering the barrier to entry.
Nice, yeah. So I think I've heard people discussing before how certain languages will require you to have a particular spacing and particular formatting as you go through, and that relates to functions even, possibly. Correct me if I'm wrong. So yeah, nice knowing that there is that flexibility there, especially if it's someone's first time. Giving that little bit of leniency on that stuff is really great.
Well, it's all about sort of, when you are... If you're going to learn something like an industry standard language, right, like C or C++ or Python or JavaScript, these languages, they can give you some very esoteric error messages.
Right.
And that's not something that Fuse is, completely incapable of doing. Okay, I'll be honest. There are some error messages that are a bit tricky to figure out because coding is complicated. But when you get an error message that is really sort of quite difficult to understand, and you're at that very, very beginning level, and it turns out to just be that you're missing a semicolon somewhere, or you've got a space where it shouldn't be, those sorts of things is what we were trying to remove. Now, obviously, you can't remove all of it because it's still quite a complicated process. It has to read the program, understand it, interpret it. So yes, there are going to be some error messages, and in fact, we should try and make some deliberate ones as well. But we'll do that as we go.
I do love unintentionally breaking things, so when the time arises, sign me up.
Yeah, sure thing. I mean, it's going to happen, don't worry. Okay, so I often describe loop and repeat as being the bits of bread in a sandwich, and everything in between these words is a part of our sandwich. It's the filling of our sandwich. So let's just make some lines in here. It doesn't really matter how many. We can just make them as and when we need. So let's make one for now. And we'll write an instruction. We're going to use our first function, and all the functions in Fuse. When I say a function, I mean a particular type of instruction that sometimes receives information, sometimes doesn't. But these are sort of the backbone of the command list of Fuse. This is how you actually do stuff, if you like.
Right. Yeah.
If we write the instruction print here on this line.
By the way, Dave, I'll just interrupt really quick to say if at any point you want me to pull up your screen, just let me know. If there's a time where it makes sense to have it on screen as well, just give me a heads up and I can do that nice and easy.
Yeah, we'll do. I mean, and likewise, if at any point you think that it would be best if I demonstrated something as well, just do the same.
Cool.
I mean, I have got it open here. It's all ready to go if you at any point need it.
I can.
Okay, so when it's turned blue like that, this means it's a function. And all functions have something in common. They all need a pair of brackets after them.
Okay.
Because in these brackets is where we put our information if the function needs to receive some information. So print is one that wants some information. It needs to know what to print, right?
Makes sense.
In some brackets, if you just put in a pair of speech marks, just some whatever you want, right? Some words, it can be anything that you want.
Okay.
Yeah, and then close the speech marks and close the brackets there.
Perfect.
Cool. Right. Now, if we run this, we won't see anything.
Okay.
And this is something that is it's a tad esoteric, but once you've sort of understood it, it's kind of easy to figure out. There's a function that we need, which is essential for actually seeing anything on the screen. It's called update. And every main game loop, which is what games are at the end of the day, right? Every single game that you make, every single game that you play is a loop. When you enter into it, it boots the game up, it goes through all of its initialization, it will show you the title screen, and it's, it doesn't just stop all of a sudden. It will only stop when you turn the game off or you turn the game console off. So it's always looping, always checking stuff, always checking what stage the game is in and checking inputs and this sort of thing.
Right.
And every single iteration of this loop, every single time this loop goes all the way around, just at the end, it is updating the screen. And it's saying, right, put everything on the screen, put everything on the screen. And the speed that it does this is what we refer to as the FPS, right? So if it's doing this 60 times per second, then we have a nice smooth frame rate. This is 60 FPS. And Fuse will always try and run at 60 FPS. So it will never go over that, but it will have lots and lots of headroom. I mean, you don't really need more than 60 FPS on a Switch anyway. Okay, so we need to add the update function. And if you could put that before the word repeat. So if you make a line and add update, and then a pair of brackets, it is a function. But this is one of the functions that doesn't need anything in the brackets.
Okay. So
it doesn't need to receive any information.
So even when we don't need to put anything inside there, because it's a function, we still place both pairs of brackets.
It's correct, yeah.
Okay.
It's the thing that identifies a function sort of as a function, as well as just its name. But it's a consistency thing. And sometimes you have some functions which can or can't. That's the wrong way of putting it. As in, they don't always need. So, for example, print. If you put nothing in the brackets for print, it will just start a new line.
Right. Yeah.
And in the text display. So sometimes that they can, or they might or they might not have things in the brackets. So it's a consistency thing that just always put a pair of brackets, and you get very, very used to this after a while. Okay, so this is now a complete program. So congratulations, Tom.
I did it.
Your Fuse program. It's all downhill from here, mate. So, hello world is the high point of everybody's programming life, and then it's a slow, the myth of Sisyphus. It's pushing the boulder up to the top to watch it roll down again. No, I'm kidding. Yeah. So let's run this program.
Okay.
If you press plus.
All right, let's do it.
This will show you what we've got. There you go.
Hello, chat.
So it's just saying hello, chat again and again, and you'll notice it hasn't put a space after chat exclamation mark. And why do you think that is?
Because it's repeating, but we haven't specified that there should be a space.
Right, exactly that. Computers will do what you tell them to do, and they don't understand, the rules and the nuances of English grammar. They don't know if you want space or not. They're not going to assume that, or at least this doesn't. So yes, you would have to tell it to put a space there. Obviously, we're only on one line here. So what I'd like you to do is I'm going to change it up a little bit. Can you put another print line after the print that we've already got, but with nothing in the brackets this time? Nice empty print. And you can either put a space there or you can leave it. It's actually fine. It will accept it either way.
So I automatically did put a space there, but I haven't otherwise, so I'll keep it consistent. But that's great to know that it will accept that if there is a space in there as well.
It will indeed. Yeah, it's very, very forgiving. Okay, so this will start a new line in between each iteration of our print. So we'll see it go down the screen instead, hopefully.
So before it wrapped along the top, but now we should see it hopefully come down one after another.
That is correct.
All right, let's find out. Crossing my fingers.
Go. Here we go.
Oh, hey, very nice. Okay, great.
Okay, so we can now let's do some stuff with this, because I'm going to now sort of really try and lay bare how a loop is working, because it's not always super obvious, but this makes it very obvious. So let's go back to our code. So far so good. I'd like you to make a line at the top of the program. So if you put the cursor before the letter L, press enter a couple of times, let's leave a space, and then go up to line 1 for me.
Got it.
Okay. Right. I'm seeing a question actually from Curb's workshop. How do you make colored text? We're about to get there, but we're going to do this first.
Okay.
We're going to do this first. Okay, I'd like you to put the word text size. All one word. It's another function. That's right. Text SUZE.
It's not that forgiving. Text size, and that's a function, so we're going to do the brackets.
Correct indeed. And then what do you think we're going to put in here?
I would presume we're going to put a number for the text size.
Right, and what do you think that number might represent?
Is it number of pixels?
Oh, wow, okay, you get straight to the top of the class, Dom. Okay,
yes!
You get a gold star.
Oh, I knew putting that apple on your desk at the beginning of the session would pay off.
As long as it's not a cyanide-laced apple, then we're fine.
Uh-oh.
Oh, dear. Brilliant. Yes, it is indeed a number of pixels. I will tell you now that your screen right now is outputting at 1080p on the y-axis, right? So as long as you put a number which is less than 1080, we'll be okay. So let's just try, like a decently... So a bit, I don't know. You pick a number first. I'll tell you if it's reasonable.
200? Is that too big?
Yeah, let's go 200. That's reasonable.
Okay,
that's reasonable.
All right.
Okay, so let's see what effect this has.
Okay, before we get started, I just want to say a big thank you to Bot564 for 2 months as VideoDojo Premium channel member. Bot says, I'm surprised Dom hasn't destroyed the game yet. Just give me time, Bot. I'll get there, I'm sure. Thank you very much for your support of the channel. All right, let's run this code.
It should be a fair bit bigger, yeah.
Yeah, that is pretty big. Nice. So we are now looping it down the screen as opposed to across because we got put that extra function in, and then we've also set the text size.
Okay.
Very nice. Okay.
So just to show you, I'd like you to put the number 2 in those brackets, please.
Instead of the 200?
Yes, just take out the zeros.
Okay.
It's just entertaining to see how tiny the text is. I personally enjoy it quite a bit.
What is this, a code for ants?
Hey?
What is this, a game for ants?
Indeed. Yeah, our ant workshops aren't so popular.
Even if they were, you wouldn't see them.
Oh dear. I mean, the internet's enough of a hive mind as it is without involving ants. Okay, so we can put numbers in here. Now, I'd like you to replace this number with another function.
Oh.
Because what I'd like you to... Something that you kind of end up realizing when you learn to code is that everything is numbers. Okay? And the sooner you realize that, the quicker you will level up. Because everything can be represented with numbers. This is the beauty and the genius of, the basics of maths and logic. It's we don't know why it is the case that numbers are the way they are, but they do seem to work pretty well. Everything can be represented as numbers, and if you try and think about things as just numbers, you can see things a bit more clearly. It becomes sort of eminently clear as you keep going. But what we're going to do, because the text size function is expecting a number, right? Now we're going to use another function in here, which will it returns something to us. So writing this other function, which is called random, and I imagine that it's fairly easy to see what this is going to do. So if you put random, not ransom.
I've got it.
And this is a function, so it's going to need its own brackets. Inside. Yeah.
Oh, So wrapping around random itself?
No, actually. Like it would be for text size, like all the other functions, it needs to be at the end of the word. Yeah, there. Right. That's right.
Okay, I get you. All right.
That's it. Now, inside those brackets, we're going to put a number that random is expecting. So random it's expecting a number to choose out of. So if we say random 100, it's going to give us 0 to 99, 100 different options.
Yep.
Right?
Okay.
So you choose a number in here. Maybe something around that 200 or the 100. Yeah. Something nice and big so we can, Okay. So if you press the plus button now, obviously we don't know what size we're going to get.
Yeah. So we're going to
And
see.
I'm seeing in the chat here, someone's already picked up on exactly what we're going for here. And so I won't say it out loud yet, but
Okay.
I'll let Dom get
All
the
right.
answer.
I'm going to press run.
That's right. Yeah, go for it. And now I want you to run it again. So just plus. Oh, okay. It picked the exact same size, it looked like.
That's a bit smaller.
Very similar sizes. It's a little bit smaller. Probably going to get, yeah, that's a bit bigger.
So if I went up to 300 here, that would make that more apparent, I guess.
Yes, it would. Yeah. We're going to have a larger variety of sizes to choose from. Yeah. But it's also going to make it less likely that we'll get a lower size, right? Because now there's like 200 more sizes than the ones we had that are all bigger.
Yeah, good point. Yeah.
So to really make it eminently clear what this loop is doing, what we're going to do is move things around a little bit. Because you know how I told you that the loop is like a sandwich and everything inside the sandwich is part of our sandwich. So everything inside loop and repeat is inside the loop.
Yeah.
When we get to the word repeat, we just return to the beginning of the loop. It will just go from line 7 to line 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we're never going to read that first line again. Right?
It's going to do it just once upon running it. Right.
Exactly
Now it's like a pickled gherkin outside the sandwich that you munch on before you start the sandwich, but we need it to...
Right, and why should we do that when we could put our gherkin in the sandwich and objectively improve its quality?
Absolutely.
Exactly.
A no-brainer.
So, depends on the sandwich, but I mean, I'm a big fan of pickles. So, you'd be hard-pressed to find a sandwich I wouldn't approve of pickles going in, actually.
Dave, I couldn't agree more.
Maybe not peanut butter? I don't know.
No, I don't know. Don't knock it till you've tried it.
I would try it. Okay, so can you delete the loop line for me?
Okay.
So we're going to get rid of the beginning of our loop.
Oops.
And then I want you to make a line above text size. That's it. And then write loop back on that line.
This line here?
Yes. Yeah.
Got it. So now our top slice of bread is above the pickled gherkin.
Right. Our gherkin is now in the sandwich. And so what do you predict will happen, Dom?
So it's running the random command inside the loop now. So is it going to randomize every single line?
It should do.
Okay,
Hopefully.
Let's find out. Okay, yes. Oh, and coming back on itself?
Eventually, that's interesting. That is very interesting. It must have got quite far down. So eventually things are going to wrap. So if you it's getting really unreadable now. So yeah, it's so you can. I just wanted to show you that because that makes it very, very clear what a loop is doing. Right? It's putting something inside the loop, and it's a part of this repeating process, whereas it wasn't before. So actually, on that blank line, what I'd like to do is to incorporate some color. So if we put ink, INK, nice and simple commands, and inside the brackets for ink, what do you think you put in there?
I would imagine we're going to put a color, but I don't know whether that would be a name or a number.
Okay, you've got good intuition. You can go with either. We'll go with a name first. So can you choose a nice old color that you like?
Let's go.
We'll see if we've got it.
Let's go for a lovely blue.
Okay. Now I'll just warn you. Okay, there's a lot of different blues. Are you a fan of azure, cyan?
I do like some cyan.
Yeah, me too. Actually, let's go with cyan then.
Oh, just before we do, I would like to say a big thank you to RJ the Great for gifting 5 channel memberships to chat. You should be now seeing who was the lucky recipients of those gift channel memberships. So congrats to Gumby Time, Regalo, Rex, Smorzles, and Alaya. A big thanks again for sending those gift subs, RJ. Can we get some cool gamers in chat for RJ? Apologies, Dave.
What a legend.
Yeah, I know. Absolutely. All right, this one's for you then, RJ. Let's go. So I'm going to go straight for cyan.
Yeah, let's just put cyan in here just to see if it works, and also to demonstrate that. See how that word turned green?
Yeah, that's the first time we've seen that kind of green, isn't it?
It is, yeah. And some people will be like, hang on, I typed in this color, but now it's green. Like, what's going on? And green is a color that is reserved for particular words that sort of already exist in Fuse as variables. So things that already are defined. So every single color name is something that you're not allowed to use in your program. Like, you can't make cyan mean something else. That's what I mean.
Right.
So cyan is always the color cyan. You can't redefine the word cyan to be the number 10, for instance.
It exists as a sort of like it's referring to a dictionary of sorts then.
Essentially, yes.
Okay.
The term for them is system variables, and we'll understand that more as we go into the variable side of things. But yeah, let's see what this looks like. Let's get some cyan
Okie doke.
In the program. It should be nicely cyan.
All right,
hopefully.
I will click that in 1 sec, but I do want to say again, thank you to RJ for 5 more gift subs in the, or gift channel memberships, excuse me, in the chat. Much appreciated for your continued support of the channel and your real generosity, allowing a whole bunch of people some new access to the emotes in the chat as well. I can see a lot of cool gamers there for RJ. Okay, let's run this. Hey, nice. Beautiful cyan.
Yeah. Cyan's nice, but I'll tell you what's nicer.
Oh?
Bisque.
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 A delicious bisque.
Delicious bisque. The color, the blandest color on the planet. No to man.
Bisque like this?
Bisque exactly like that. Your spelling is perfect.
Let's give this a try. Let's get some.
It's basically white. It's so bland.
Ooh, like a little. I don't know. That's like a nice milk tea, maybe. It's a bit light for a milk tea.
Too light for a cup of tea, Dom. If anyone gave me a cup of tea like that, I'd probably throw it at them, which wouldn't be too bad because with a color like that, it certainly wouldn't be warm either.
No. It'd be stone cold. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I saw a couple of people in the chat who are definitely from our community, and I've seen a couple of requests for bisque already, so I have to throw it in there. Hope you forgive me.
Absolutely. No, I was kind of partial to it, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to. I wouldn't want to live in a bisque cell, maybe. I mean, maybe it's preferable to an all white one. I'm not sure, but that's bisque.
RJ the Great, thank you very, very much for the $2 super chat and the money towards a better GPG mouse. Much appreciated. Thank you for your absolutely wild support today. Much appreciated.
RJ the Great definitely living up to their name.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, so right. What I'd like to do now is to introduce a variable into this program. We're going to sort of fast track a little bit. If that's okay with you?
Yeah,
so
of course.
If we make a couple of lines at the beginning of our program.
Before the loop?
Yes, before the loop. So what we've got here is our main loop. So every program has a main loop. And I say every program, obviously there's some exceptions, but every program that's really doing something, every game project has its main loop. It's the place where the program really spends all of its time.
Okay.
And so I'd like to, just to show that you can do it really, I'd like to label this. So on line 2, could you put 2 forward slashes for me? Okay, this will go gray, and it means ignore everything after these.
Right.
So using these, we can write some comments in our program. We can leave some notes for ourselves. We can, remind us of what we need to do later. We can say, this needs attention or this and this. RJ the Great. It's no problem. No problem whatsoever.
RJ the Great sent a $2 super chat. Sorry, Dave, for cutting you off. Like right now.
RJ, thank you again for the $2 super chat and for apologizing for cutting Dave off, I suppose. Thank you so much.
Brilliant. Definitely a cool gamer.
For sure.
We need some similar emojis, actually, I think. Yeah, so on this line 2, let's write main loop. So we're just labeling the section of our program.
Okay. And
it's just going to help us stay organized, really.
Right.
Obviously, not super important right now because we only have like 10 lines, but game programs and game projects, they become quite expansive.
Mm.
In fact, it's perfectly reasonable to have a program that is in the, thousands and thousands and thousands of lines.
Wow. Yeah. So although it's a very minimal thing that we have here right now, it's good to get into that habit of labeling that stuff because it can get pretty expensive, I suppose.
Absolutely. And it's also why formatting is actually really, really helpful. Because then when you're looking at your code, you can just sort of at a glance see what's going on. In fact, actually, on the spirit of that, let's add formatting. Let's make this program look a bit more professional.
Let's do it.
It doesn't actually affect how the program works, but this is just good practice. So what I'd like you to do is to go to the text size line, the beginning of the text size line. Just before the letter T. And then if you could press the tab button on your keyboard, that's going to add 4 spaces. Now, if you could do that for each of the lines that are inside the loop.
Okay, so we're pushing all of those along. Did you say 4 spaces with tab?
Yeah. Or just a tab button.
Yeah.
So you can see why we do this immediately.
Yes, it's so much more readable. Those things are sitting within the bread loop that we've got here.
That's right, exactly, yeah. It's just, and obviously, again, once with just 10 lines, not really a big issue, but when you've got loops inside of loops, inside of loops, inside of if statements, inside of loops, it's actually really, really helpful to have these sort of incrementally going along so that you can just, at a glance, read the program flow.
100%.
Very, very helpful.
Yeah. Cool.
Okay.
So we've got our nicely formatted bit of code here as well.
It's looking pretty pro. So if we go up to the top of our program, then let's introduce the variable that we talked about. So if you could make a line as well, just to leave a bit of space. And on line 1, we're going to make a variable, and a variable is, we're going to call it a label for now.
Okay.
Now, of course, a lot of these things, I'm going to say a disclaimer here. If you know your coding in the chat and in the audience, then when I say some of these things, it might sound a little bit like, well, actually, technically, it's this and this and this. And yes, absolutely. But we're interested in understandability here and in accessibility. So I want you to think about it like a label for something. Just like, if you go to, are you partial to IKEA, Dom? Do you ever go to IKEA?
Oh, yeah. I love a wander around IKEA, even when I'm not planning on picking anything up. Going for some lunch? Going for some lunch? Absolutely.
I'm very, very partial to the meatballs there. And there's a particular cake there, which is just outrageous.
Oh, is it the dime cake?
It is indeed, Dom. I'll drive an hour for that.
It's the dime for. Oh, no, that's not even. That's don't humor me with a laugh there. That was not even a pun.
It was good enough for me to panic, think of as many as I could, and then reach nothing. So I'm coming up empty on that. No. One might hit me later. Right, where are we? Yeah, let's go up to line 1.
Okay.
So in IKEA, obviously, you know how you go around and then you get to the warehouse at the end, right? You need to know the label of where you're looking, right? You need to know the address of the thing that you're going to find. Otherwise, if you just sort of were let loose in the warehouse and you had to find what you needed, it's not going to be a very fun experience. So use labels to let you know exactly where to look. And that's what you can think of a variable like. It's just a label for the computer to know where to access something, right?
Yep.
So we're labeling a piece of information. It's often a number, but it could be something like a word or something else. It could be something more complex. So what we're going to write is size, the word size.
Okay.
And then equals. And then we'll put something like 10. So we've taken the number 10, we've stored it somewhere, and we've labeled that place size.
RJ the Great sent a $2 super chat. Or write the final INTERUPTION _Joe JKP.
RJ, thank you very much for the $2 super chat and the final interruption. This is like teaching on hard mode, Dave, today.
To be honest, it's actually it's pretty much exactly what it's like. To be honest, yeah, I don't know. It would be a bit nicer if the kids were throwing money at me as well.
That is true. That is true.
If they were chucking their pocket money at me, I would accept more interruptions.
Thank you so much, RJ, for all of your lovely super chats today.
It's so cool to see. It's you got a lovely community, Dom, I must say.
They absolutely are. Yeah, they are wonderful. Okay, so we've got size 10.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, if you go to your text size line,
yeah,
and get rid of the random 300 in brackets, right?
Okay.
So just get rid of that whole bit in the brackets.
Gone.
And the random as well. Get rid of
Oh,
the
and the
function.
random. Okay.
That's right. Yep. So leaving just the brackets. Right. Now inside here, we're going to write our size variable.
Okay. All right.
So just the word size.
Just size.
Yep.
So,
exactly. So we go on.
I was just going to say, so until about 2 weeks ago, I'd done barely any code at all ever or at least for many, many years. But I did a tiny little bit of Lua, and with a lot of support from chat, and I recall doing something somewhat similar to this. So I think now by typing size in, we're sort of referring back to that label at the top as you described it, our IKEA label. Is that correct? Am I on the right track there?
Correct. Yeah. Absolutely correct.
Right,
and,
cool.
Yeah, now if you wrote size like with an S instead of a Z, then even though it looks very similar, and you can maybe see that that's what you intended, we're going to get an error. In fact, actually, I'd like you to run this program.
Okay, with the incorrect spelling.
Yes.
Ooh.
So we're seeing the FUZE error message screen here, which looks like sort of quite an old school text display. And we can see a lot of information here. So the most important thing is that just the line that says variable does not exist. And it tells you which variable that is.
Right.
So now we know, and we can see on line 5, the related function that had the error is text size. It gives you quite a lot of information.
Yeah.
And so from this, we can then say, okay, this variable does not exist. Let's go back into our program and look at that line. Oh, yeah, we've misspelled it. And let's change the S to a Z. And it should work. Now, if we put that Z here, what we're going to get is just a repeated size 10. This would be the same as if we just wrote 10 in the brackets, right?
Yep. There we go.
So, pretty normal stuff. So you might think, well, why do we do this?
Yeah.
Why do we do this? Now, the reason is, if we did just write 10 in the brackets, the number 10 can only ever be the number 10. Right? We can't change the meaning of a number. 10 is 10. We can't say 10 is now 5.
Right.
But when it's a variable, we're actually talking about a location. We're talking about a label. So we can change what's in a label. Think of it as like a box with a label on it.
Yeah.
In this box, you've got a number 10. And so we can go into that box, adjust what's in there, do something to it. Maybe we add, maybe we take away, maybe we multiply. And then we can put that back in the box. And we are changing this number. And this is how you make things change in coding. You have to have variables if you want things to be changing. I mean, technically speaking, yes, you could just write more and more lines. You could say text size 10, ink bisc, print hello chat, text size 11, print hello chat, text size 12. But obviously that becomes very impractical if you want something to happen a lot of times.
Yeah.
This is the technique that we use. Now, let's try incrementing. Let's increase this variable. We're going to manipulate this variable after we have printed. So let's do this after the second print. Yeah. So make a line here. The reason I'm doing it here is just because of sort of the flow of things. We've set the size to this. We're going to print in that size, and now we're going to change that size.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
So just in terms of the logic of it, it really doesn't actually matter. But yeah, this is just the way I'm thinking. So we're going to take size and we're going to redefine it. On line 1, we defined the word size to mean 10, but now we're going to redefine that to mean something else.
Right. Okay.
So we're going to write size equals size plus 1.
Okay. So just to kind of read back through, once the loop starts, we're going to print out the bisq text at size 10. But once the print's been finished, we're going to say, actually, now size is size +1, update, and run again.
So size is 10. So we're saying take that value, add 1 to it, and then put that into our size variable.
Right. Yes, yes, yes. Okay. Got it.
What do you expect to happen now?
So I think we're going to see some size 10 text, then we're going to see some size 11 text immediately after. Is that correct?
What will we see after the size 11 text?
I think it's going to be size 12 because we've now said that size 10 is 11. So next time round, it's +1 on 11.
That's correct. I think you might be right there, Dom. Let's see.
All right, let's find out. I'm nervous. Oh, yes. Okay. That's a beautiful little cascade we've got going.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, it is. It's you get some really nice effects with just basic text programming. I really like it.
Nice.
Also start to look a little bit 3D.
Yeah.
Coming at you sort of thing. Yeah. So how would you maybe make that increase faster?
So I think we could increase the number that's there. We could say it increases by 3 as opposed to 1, for example.
Yeah. That's going to increase 3 times faster. Let's just try that. Let's try changing the number. Cool.
Nice.
So just these little things. Very, very helpful. Okay, so let's do size equals size plus 10.
Okay, so a significant jump each time.
Quite a significant jump, yeah.
Okay, shall I run
let's
this
just
one?
run that to make sure. Let's just see what sort of sizes it's going to become. Right, okay. Okay, so now I'd like to use this chance to introduce our third concept. So are you happy so far? We've got loops. We've got things happening again and again.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely, yeah. It runs at anything that's inside the sandwich. Will get run. Yep.
We've got our variables. Do you feel sort of happy with this idea? We're labeling something, we're using it in our program, we can change what's in that box, etc.
Absolutely, yep.
Brilliant. What I'd like to show you now is probably, I would say, although these things, it's a bit of a moot point really, but this is possibly the most important concept in coding that's coming up next. And that is the if statement. So a conditional instruction, something that happens if something else is true.
Okay.
If something else is true. So after size equals size plus 10, let's make a line. And let's write if, the magical, super powerful word if.
There we go.
As you can see, it's in red.
Yep.
If is a keyword like loop, like repeat. And similarly to stuff like text size, inc, bisq, you can't change what these words mean. You're not allowed to use if as a variable like we have used size. Yeah, they're too powerful. They're too important. So what we'll do is we're going to reset the size when it gets to a particular amount.
Okay.
Right. So we'll say if size. Or in other words, if the number that is contained in size.
So 10 in this case.
Say what, sorry?
Would that be 10 in this case? Or would that be 10 plus 10?
It's going to be, it'll be 20 on this particular line. Because, it's a good point, actually. It will never check it before it adds 10. So it's not really a particularly big issue for us. We could put this if statement before the text size line, just before, and then we would be checking while it's 10, but it's actually not. It's a very, it's a, what's the word I'm looking for? It's a good intuition that you've got there.
So it
is going to change how it works.
There is a flow of things as we move through the lines then, as you were kind of referring to previously.
The order of things is very, very important. In the workshops, I tend to say that, if you're following a recipe for a cake, pretty important that you need to like break the eggs out of the shells before you add them to the flour. Yeah.
Right. Perfect. Yeah.
Chuck them in and hope for the best. It's not going to be the nicest cake.
Certainly give it a try though.
So let's complete this if statement. We'll say if size, and then we'll put the greater than symbol.
Okay. Oh, that is this one.
That one's less than.
Oh, I had a 50-50 chance, and I picked the wrong one. There we go. We'll just cut that out. This is I'll make a timestamp, but yeah, exactly.
Blur it out and one of those technical difficulties screens.
Yeah.
So we're going to put a number after this. So we'll say like 50. Say 50.
50.
Yeah. So if size is greater than 50, then. So space and then the word then. Now I want you to leave a line. You don't have to. You could write this all on one line if you wanted to. But I'm just going to keep illustrating sort of quote unquote proper formatting. And I say proper, it is at the end of the day fairly subjective, especially at this level. It's up to you, but this is sort of a standard way of doing things, and you can see the benefit as well.
Absolutely, yeah.
I'd like you to just press enter again for me. And then on this line, I want you to write end if, all one word, end if.
Okay, so that's also gone red, so I'm guessing that's one of those powerful words you were referring to before that is like defined and can't be changed.
That's correct, exactly. It's a token. It is a key word, and it tells the interpreter, the thing that's reading this code and saying, okay, here's what we need to do. It's telling that where the end of this if statement is. And if we don't have that, it thinks that everything after the word then is going to be part of this conditional instruction. So it's very important that we have that. It's a bit like if I said to you, right, if you go to the shops today, could you get some milk? And then I didn't tell you, and that's it. And then everything afterwards that I said, you went and did if you went to the shops. And I never saw you again because you went to the shops, you got some milk, but then you did everything else that I said in the whole day. I need to give you the end of the shopping list, the end of the list of things to do.
I'm taking it very, very literally because you specifically didn't say, and that's everything I want you to buy.
That is exactly right. This is the way that you need to think when it comes to text coding. Yeah.
Okay.
You're essentially telling like just an absolute troll sort of what to do because they will go to every effort to misunderstand you.
Well, you didn't specifically tell me that you'd finished saying what I'm buying. Right, that's the voice you've got to hear when doing this.
Now that there's an idea there for like something like a Microsoft paperclip.
Yes.
Like a coding companion that's just this really obnoxious.
FUZE.
Ooh. These are good ideas. I need to write that down. Okay, so in the if statement, we're going to press tab again. Yes, his name's Clips. His name's Clips. Well remembered.
It's not Clippy.
Maybe is it Clippy?
I always thought it was Clippy. I don't know. Yeah.
It is Clippy.
Ah.
Oh, okay. Fair play. So it's not Clips. Clips is his incredibly evil alter ego.
Oh no! Yeah. So sorry, what was the last thing you asked me to do?
Last thing I asked, can we go into the if statement? So line 11. And then press tab here, and we're going to go into this if statement. So it's just another conventional thing that we do. It means that when you're reading the code, you can say, oh, okay, something there is happening inside another instruction.
Right.
So it's part of this condition. So what we'll do is we're going to reset the size to 10. So we'll just say size equals 10. So we're just redefining our variable. Yeah. It's very, very literal. Now, just to really make this clear, because it's not something that's very obvious, but I'd like you to highlight. So go up to line 10, and I want you to hold shift and highlight size greater than 50. Just highlight the whole thing. Right. That little section there between the words if and then. This is what's called our condition. Okay? And everything between the words if and then gives you a result. And that result can only be one of two things. It's either true or it's false.
Right. It's either less than or greater than 50.
Absolutely. And we could put any number of things, of conditions in this by using words such as and words such as or. We could say, if size is greater than 50, or the size is less than 100, and the size is, greater than this and that. And the whole combination of those things will be combined into one result that says yes or no.
Okay.
It's important to realize that.
Got it. Yeah, that is very essential to know. I did see that PB4 underscore, hello PB4 underscore says, even if it is 50, it's not greater than 50. Yes, good clarification there. My answer wasn't exactly spot on.
If we wanted it to also include 50 as a viable option, we could put an equal sign after the greater than. So you could do that, actually. You could put just after the greater than, you put an equals, and now this will trigger when it is 50.
Yes, okay.
Otherwise, it will only happen when it's 60. So you get very, very different things by just adding an extra symbol. So it's important to sort of think and understand what it is you're doing, but obviously you learn by experimenting at the end of the day.
For sure, yeah.
So this program is now going to reset the size, and it's just using our if statement. Let's see if it works.
All right, let's give this a go. Oh, okay. So no longer do we have that cascade. We've got a kind of rippling here as it resets itself round.
Very, very much so. Very much so. Okay. Now I'm going to try something here. It's going to get a little bit more exciting. Okay. So you better hold on to your seat there.
I don't want to alarm you, Dave. I'm standing up.
You're standing?
I'm going to have to find a seat somewhere to hold on to.
I can't believe you're standing. That I did not expect. Okay, that's.
I'll hold on to my socks. That's a phrase, isn't it?
What's that again?
Hold on to my socks. That's
a phrase. Yeah, that's an ancient.
Maybe it's it's gonna blow your socks off. But if I hold on to my socks, they're not gonna.
Yes.
We'll
it might.
We'll find some combination of words there that'll work.
Oh dear. I'd have to put some socks on first, then hold on to them. Full disclosure, I am not wearing socks. I know it's.
All the big reveals are happening right now. I'm not sitting down. You're not wearing socks. What is the stream coming to?
What's going on? Right. Okay. I would like you to add a function just before text size. So inside the loop. And so we'll add another tab here to go into the loop, and I want you to write the word clear.
Clear, okay.
Clear.
Oops. There we go.
So it's a function, so it's going to need a pair of brackets. Okay. And inside those brackets, actually, we're not going to write anything, but you can write a color. And if you write a color, it will clear the screen with that color.
Whoa, okay.
If you don't put anything in there, it will clear it with black.
Okay, well, let's try it. We have bisque as our ink, so let's go cyan again because we lost that earlier. So now it's going to.
That's going to be quite intense. Okay, we'll see.
Oh, okay. Is it going to be flickery?
No, it's not going to flicker.
Okay. Well, let's give it a go. Let's go for intense.
It's just going to be bright.
Okay. All right, let's give this a try.
So just have a little think, though. I want you to predict what's going to happen because I want people to see this process. It's really important to predict what's going to happen before you actually run.
Okay.
It gives you more control over what's going on, and you're going to learn more from it if you actively predict the results.
So I'm going to try and visualize it by reading through what we've written here.
Exactly that, Dom.
Okay.
Exactly that.
Point out any step I go wrong here in this prediction. So
I will do.
I think because it's the first thing in the loop. Is it going to try and clear even though there's nothing there? So maybe we're going to see the cyan first. Then the text size is defined by the label at the top. So the text size is going to be 10. It's going to print a ink of bisque. So the text will be bisque. It's going to say hello chat in bisque. And then it's going to do it again, but with plus 10 on the size until it gets to greater than or equal to 50. Then it's going to reset that to 10.
Yes, so let's skip the if statement. It's perfect, but let's just skip the if statement for the first time because it's not going to happen on the first iteration, right? So it will increase the size by 10. It's not greater than 50. So we're going to now repeat that loop. And the first thing that happens is we clear the screen.
Of course, yes, yeah. Before we do get any kind of increment there.
That's right.
Okay.
So what we'll see is some movement, hopefully.
All right, let's give this a try.
Let's run the program. Now, it's quite fast.
So
and it's really, really bright.
Yes.
And our text is super bright as well. So let's change some stuff. Let's, if you make the, I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll get rid of cyan. And then we will change size equals size plus 10 to size equals size plus 1. And then reset the size to 1. Oh, no, actually, that's fine. Sorry. No, you can keep the size as 10 when it gets to that point.
Okay.
Yeah, that's fine. Let's also make the size a bit bigger. Let's say if size is greater than or equal to 500.
Got it.
Right. So it should just be a bit more of a long-lasting thing. What we were seeing is very jumpy because we're increasing the size by 10 each time.
Yeah.
And it was setting very, very quickly as well because this is happening 60 times a second, right? This loop is happening 60 times every single second.
Yeah.
So it's pretty quick. And so it's going to get to that number extremely quickly, but this should be a much more visually understandable thing here. Oh, you clicked L then, I believe.
Yes, I think I did. I crossed my arms.
I found a really helpful feature, which is a find. So you can press L at the start of anything, and it will highlight up until a space, or until it changes that token. So if you did it on print, it's going to highlight all of them. And you can press L and R to jump between each one.
Nice.
So if you did it on size, for instance, this is where it's sort of most useful. If you press L on size, now you can... it's doing that because you haven't put spaces between things.
Oh, I should have added a space here, shouldn't I?
I tend to put spaces between everything. Obviously, there's no objective answer to this.
Okay,
but,
I can do it on this one, though, can't I? And then...
Yes, and that's going to take you through every instance of the word size in the program. Super helpful for going and checking all the instances of a variable that you've got. Obviously, when you've got thousands of lines, it can be very, very helpful indeed. Okay, so this should be to disable this mode. Just press. You could press that. I'll totally disable it. But if you want to just disable it very quickly, you press one of the D-pad keys or your arrow keys on the keyboard. Either of those is fine. So you press down or up. Yeah, reset. Okay, so let's see if this works now.
I can imagine once you're you've typed a lot in here, that would be even more useful to quickly jump through each of those. Yeah.
It combines with a find and replace feature as well. So if you decide to rename a variable that you've written like 10,000 times in your program, it's obviously not something that you want to go and do yourself. And it will do that for you.
Okay.
So very helpful.
Shall I run? Yeah.
Let's see what happens. Yeah.
Ooh, look at that. That's smooth.
Okay, there we go. So it's going to get to size 500. And it's going to reset.
Nice. And because of how fast it's refreshing that, the increments are really, really smooth. Or the transition between each one's really, really smooth as well.
Right. Yeah, exactly. It's happening 60 times a second, so we're seeing it really nice and smoothly. If it was happening, if this was a much more, let's say that we had some really intense stuff going on in our program, but it was still just doing this, but we had like tons of things that were being checked. And let's say that we dropped our frame rate to like 20 FPS. This would be stuttering. It would be visually stuttering. And that's to do with how the brain perceives movement. As long as things are happening faster than 30 times a second, your brain has a very, very hard time thinking that it's not a continuous thing. So 60 FPS is nice and nice and smooth. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is actually introduce something that's a bit more complex than it might initially look, even though it will make a lot of sense, but it's hard to see. So there's something that happens when you're learning to code, and I think of it a bit like a spiral. Okay. So I've shown you three concepts here: loops, variables, if statements. And right now, it's very difficult to see beyond this implementation. So I've shown you what a variable is, but it's going to be almost impossible for you to see every single instance that a variable could be used to achieve something. And loops as well. Like I've shown you a loop and it's constantly doing something, but that doesn't necessarily tell you everywhere that you could use a loop to do all sorts of brilliant things. Same with if statements. We've shown you one if statement, but that doesn't necessarily tell you every use of an if statement. And so this technique I'm going to show you now is actually... there's a lot that you can do with this in games programming. And we'll go into this. We will use this same concept again in the next thing that we make, and we'll try and sort of speed it along. So I'm aware that we are, it's actually that has flown, actually, just looking at the time. It really has. But yeah, I'm definitely willing to go on a little bit past if you want to get lots achieved.
Yeah, just let me know how you're doing for time if we do get to that point. But yeah, happy to keep going for as long as you'd like
let's
to.
do that. Yeah. No, we've got good momentum now, and I'd really like to see a few things happen before we even think about
100%. Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to make another variable for another one of our numbers here.
Okay.
So we've got a variable for the size. What other numbers could we redefine in this program?
Okay, so other numbers.
There are 3 numbers on screen right now.
Yeah. So we've got our size plus 1.
The initial size.
Yep. Then our size plus 1.
The limit at which we want to reset the size, as in 500.
Uh-huh.
And we've also got the rate at which the size changes, which is 1. Yeah?
Yep.
So that number 1, we could turn that into a variable as well, and then that could also change during our program.
Okay.
So the rate itself could change whilst it's happening.
So would that be a case of us, if I wrote at the top rate equals 1 and then replace the 1 within the loop? Am I on the right lines there?
Let's do exactly that, Dom. Yeah.
Okay. So.
Oh, and I've just seen a question in the chat, which I'm going to answer that right now with this next bit. Someone has said, could you do size plus plus to change the size by 1 in this language? That is something that you get in all sorts of languages, but there's a shorthand way of doing this, but it's not exactly size plus plus. We're going to go down to where you've got size equals size plus 1, and before you change size, before you change the 1 into rate, I want you to get rid of that. So press B until you just go up to the first size. So everything including the equals.
Okay.
Right. And now I want you to change it to plus equals.
Ooh, okay.
So this is a shorthand way of saying this variable equals this variable's plus this. It's just a shorthand way. So you don't have to write the name twice. Which is, it's not a big deal if you've got just a single letter variable, but if you've got like a variable that's called the underscore size underscore of underscore my underscore program underscore text, then it's a real pain to write that twice. And so something like plus equals very useful. You can also do minus equals, times equals, divide equals.
So could you just break down what that is, that size plus equals once more?
Yeah, absolutely. So the full version of it is to say size equals size plus 1, for instance.
Right, yeah.
Okay. So what we're doing is we're taking our variable, we're adding something to it, that's the size plus 1 bit, and then we're putting the result of that into the variable itself. So we're actually just adding 1 to whatever is already there. If you imagine we've got our box, and that has got a 10 inside, let's say that there's like 10... I was going to say lemons immediately. I don't know why. Let's say we've got 10 lemons in a pot.
Okay.
Called lemons. And we're just putting another lemon in there. We're saying lemons plus equals 1. We're just chucking a lemon in the box. If we do lemons minus equals 1, we're taking a lemon out.
Yep.
If we do lemons times equals 2, we are doubling all the lemons. Right?
Makes sense. Yep. Got it. Thank you for going over that again for me.
At all. It's it's one we sort of went over very, very quickly because it was something in the chat as well. So yes, plus equals is the way to write that in shorthand. It's just adding something to whatever's in the variable.
Yeah.
Instead of size plus equals 1, let's do size plus equals rate.
Yep. Which we've now defined as 1 at the top.
Absolutely. Now we're going to do a trick here. Instead of size equals 10 on line 12.
Yep.
What we'll do is we will change the rate. And we're going to do something quite fancy. So if you get rid of this line, just
all of
until
it.
Yeah, until the tab. So just we can read, that's it. Just do one more tab there. And then we'll rewrite it. So back to, if you press tab twice, so we're back into the if statement like...
Oops, sorry, hang on.
That's all right.
So it would have taken me here, wouldn't it, if I'd...
If you if you go to the end of the line and then press enter, it should take you to that, and then press tab once, and then just so we're back here.
Right.
So we're just replacing the instruction that we had. So instead of resetting the size to 10, what we're going to do is we're going to take the rate. So we'll write rate,
Mhm.
and we're going to use times equals. So times in coding is an asterisk, not an
Aha.
X.
Okay.
Yeah, because X is way too useful to use for other things.
Yeah, I can imagine.
PB, if Fuse gives you lemons, you put them in a box. I love it, mate. Excellent. Right, so if you put times equals, what we're saying is take whatever's in this rate variable,
Yep.
which is 1, and times it by this number that we're going to say.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Now, if we put a -1 here,
Ooh.
what is that going to do to that number?
So if we are timesing it by our rate, which is 1, but it's a -1,
Yep.
is that going to be 0? What is that
No.
going to...
No. If we times any number by
Yep.
-1, it becomes itself, but negative.
Okay.
So we're going to take 1 and turn it into -1.
Right.
And now, when we add 1 on
Yep.
size plus equals rate, we're actually adding a -1, which is the same as decreasing it. So it's a
Yes.
very, very helpful technique. It's a way of doing directions. You're basically saying go forward until a particular point and then
Yep.
turn around and go backwards,
Wow. Okay.
which gives you a bit of the idea of like the applications for this sort of technique, because you can imagine some sort of game sprite when it reaches a particular point on the screen.
Cool.
We could multiply its direction by -1 and it's going to go the other way.
Beautiful.
Right?
Mr.
I'm showing
Owen...
you this in terms of text and obviously.
But these things apply for those as well. Mr.
This is
Owen
why I
chat...
love text coding, to be honest, because a technique that you use like that, it's exactly the same everywhere, no matter where you use it. If you've got a sprite or if you've got 100 different sprites, this technique helps you all the way along. And it's the same thing. It's just times equals -1 every single time.
Beautiful. Mr. O in chat just says, remember the inversion node-on. So yes, my closest reference point for this would be the inversion node-on that will let you turn the input that you send into it into a minus number. Cool.
Brilliant. Yeah, exactly that. So this is the inversion node-on right here. Times equals -1 is the inversion node-on.
Mm-hmm. Okay, got it.
Now, we are going to run into a problem here. And we'll see if... obviously, if your brain is fried, then that's fine. You let me know.
Mm-hmm.
Think you can predict what it will be. But if not, we can just run it and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about.
So, is it to do with the rate with which we are inverting this? It's never going to get to 500?
Oh, you're getting closer. It will get to 500 once.
Once.
But then when we multiply the rate by -1, now we're going down.
So we'll never hit 500 again.
We'll never hit 500 again.
Right.
Exactly.
Okay.
Let's just see it in action. Let's just see that problem happen. So let's run the program.
Let's do it.
Here we go.
So we're going up.
Going up and up and up and up and up. Get to 500. We're going to reach 500. It's about now. Okay, it's going to go back down.
Right.
Well, now, of course, it's checking. Is it greater than 500? Is it greater than 500? No, it's not. No, it's not. And now it's gone. Forever.
I liked the comical speed with which it disappeared there. So yeah, it's never going to come back.
Let's fix this problem.
Okay.
Now, we're going to do this with another keyword in our if statement. We're going to expand our if statement to be a little bit more complicated.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to use the keyword or. So
after 500
is greater than equals to 500 space or size, we'll put less than 0.
Less than?
Yeah, less than or equal to 0 we'll put, just to keep it consistent.
Okay, so we expanded this out, and now it's going to be looking for when we hit 500 or less than or equal to 0.
And let's just to sort of bring that back. Remember when I asked you to highlight in between if and then?
Mm-hmm.
It's the same thing here. So we have 2 conditions. size could be greater than 500, or size could be less than 0. Either of those things could be true.
Mm-hmm.
But what the OR keyword is doing is it's saying if either of these things is true,
Mm-hmm.
then the whole thing is true.
Right.
It's
Right.
saying, it's like if there's a bit of a joke actually with that. It's a bit of a silly programmer's joke, but it's like if I said, I'm trying to think of how I would word it. It's kind of the same with and as well. But if I said, like, go to the shops, and if they have milk or they have bread,
Mm-hmm.
then get them.
Yeah.
Right? Then you're going to try and get both, even if they've only got one. Because
Right.
let's say they've got milk. Well, I've told you to get them. So
Mhm.
you're going to try and get bread and milk.
Mm-hmm.
Because even though they've only got milk in, like, it's still satisfying the if statement. And similarly, if they only had bread but they didn't have milk, then you're going to be confused because you're trying to get both bread and milk. So it's kind of a bad example, actually. It's maybe a little bit confusing. I'm thinking on top of my head there. But it's not something that's immediately obvious. You've
Yeah.
got two conditions, but
Mhm.
the whole thing combined is one condition.
Yeah.
And so if either of these things is true, it will go into that if statement.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Got it.
Okay. I've said that in a bit of a roundabout way, so forgive me. But let's see this program now actually working.
Okie doke. Let's give this a go. So we're going to be going up to 500. And then what we should see is that if statement becoming true, and it's heading back. And hopefully now, once we reach 0,
Yep.
the second part of that.
Down it goes. And
There
back
we
it comes.
go. Very nice. Okie doke. Because we had that or in there that was saying if we get to 0 as well.
Exactly. So both of these conditions are going to satisfy that if statement and cause the same thing to happen. We're going to reverse the direction.
Yes.
And so it's going to be adding 1 or it's going to be adding -1. We could do all sorts with this, Dom. We could make it change color when it reaches these points. We could change the words when it reaches these points. We could do anything at all.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to sort of, build up this program from nothing, even though it's taken a little while, but it's so important because even with these 3 concepts, loops, variables, if statements, you can see how these techniques could be combined in various ways to make all sorts of things happen.
Yeah, so we went from a completely...
Everything.
Oh, one more time, sorry, Dave.
These are the building blocks of everything. I'm just reiterating the same point, but do carry on.
Yeah, no, I was going to say basically the same thing. We've gone from a completely blank screen to building something here that's come from those essential skills that you've taught us, and now we have our little bouncing text.
We do indeed.
So, for example, if I was to change this from rate to ink... Would that, or, with a little bit of expansion, would that be how we would change color when it hits 500 or 0?
Yes, exactly. Yeah,
Okay.
we could do this in a few different ways. Depends on how complicated you want to get. This is it's all like yes. So the answer is usually always yes. It's possible. Absolutely, yes, we can.
Yeah.
But it depends on sort of in what form you want to do that. A very easy way to do it would be to let's do this. Let's make another variable at the top. And we'll just call it color.
Yep.
And we'll set that as 0.
Okay.
In fact, no, let's not do it as 0. Let's do it as 1. Because 0, when you use that in the ink function, is black. And obviously we have a black screen.
Yeah.
We won't see anything. So let's use 1, which I believe is like a very dark gray. They sort of they cycle through different colors. And then what do we need to replace now?
Rate down here.
Oh, look at these guys in the chat now. You spelled color wrong. Don't even get it started.
So am I right in thinking it's rate that we're changing because we're no longer change? Oh, hang on, no.
Well, let's keep the rate in that. I think it's a really cool effect. And if we get rid of that, then we're going to lose our changing
scaling.
Thing. So we can add something to this if statement by adding another line in between if and end if. So after rate, after that line, we could do that here. and we could simply increment the color. So we could do color plus equals 1. So now, but there's another problem. Okay, and I want you to see it. I want you to see it.
Well, we're only incrementing size, not color, right?
We are incrementing color. We're incrementing it inside the if statement. So it will only happen when we change direction. But there's another problem. Just have a look at line 8.
We've already defined the color with bisque.
Pretty much, yes. It's always going to be bisque,
right.
no matter what we say with the color. So this is a really, really good example of something. So just because we've made a word called color, that doesn't mean anything. It's like saying, here's a random... that might as well say socks, right?
It's
just a totally unrelated word. The computer doesn't care that it's called color.
Mm-hmm.
All that matters is where you use it. So it's a label for a number. Where you use that number is what gives it the behavior. So if we use that instead of bisque...
Okay, right, yes. Like this?
Yes. Now it will be the color that we've set it to be. Now there's something special happening here, and I won't go into too much detail, but ink is a special function in FUZE. Ink is the only place which accepts a number, just one number, as a color. So this is just so that our workshops can be really, really nice and simple, like this, and we can just build it up very easily. If you were to be drawing something on the screen, like a box or a circle or a triangle or just any old shape, you would have to, if you wanted to change the color and use it, make random colors or something like that, you would have to treat colors as what they really are secretly, which is actually 3 numbers as 1, which is red, green, and blue. So you would have what's called a vector, which is like multiple numbers being used as one thing.
Right.
And that vector would contain an amount of red, green, and blue. And then you would change those numbers to change the color. You could make random amounts of each one. You could make it cycle through the RGB spectrum. You could do all sorts of stuff with it. But in the ink function specifically, it will accept just one color, and it will use all of these pre-programmed colors that we've set up to allow us to do exactly this sort of thing.
Gotcha. Okay, that's really cool to know.
Yeah, it's one of those little things that's like, yes, behind the scenes there's like some stuff going on that it's not explicit, but there's always going to be these sorts of things. We will get into the more advanced color usages in a little bit, actually. When we get something moving around the screen, we'll get shapes on the screen.
Nice.
Okay, so let's run this, see what happens.
Okay, let's give it a go. So we've got our
gray.
Yep, that's our 1.
That's 1. When it gets to 2, a little bit lighter. Okay, so we're changing things up. Now, what could we do to sort of speed this process along a little bit?
Well, we could change color from being 1 to being 10.
We could, but it won't actually change how quickly it changes the color. That will change which colors it changes to.
Yes, yeah, but not how quickly.
Yes, it will effectively look like more changing, but I want to make this happen just quicker.
So as it's progressing through its if.
Yes, we could do it a few ways. We could change our limit so that, let's say, so now we've got a nice red. It's quite
it's ominous, isn't it?
Red. It's a very ominous red, yes.
Hello, chat.
Yeah, it's funny that the power of the connotation.
Yeah.
It's like, why am I scared now?
This is just
really,
a very this is kind of more excited red. This is like enthusiastic rather than sinister.
Now we're getting into the nicer sort of more easy on the eyes reds. So let's change this up. Let's not change the limit, because then we're not going to see as much on the screen, and it's nice to have it, nice and big on the screen. Let's change the rate of change.
Okay.
So we'll make it go to and from this faster. Now that actually isn't the line we want to change. Because that's the line that just inverts it. That's our inversion node on, right?
So is it our label?
Correct. It's the actual definition.
Yep, because we
Absolutely
defined it at the top, and there we were just telling it to invert. So, gotcha.
Exactly that.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly that. Okay, so let's put 10. Let's make it 10 times faster. Okay, let's see what happens. Let's just see what happens. Away it goes. Okay, so it's a little bit. it's
pretty intense.
It is pretty intense. Let's maybe slow it down. Let's do something like I don't know, 4.
Yeah.
Maybe 4 or 5. And I'll tell you what. Let's also change our size limit. If we go into the 500. Obviously, we could make a variable for this as well, so we don't have to go into the program, which is very, very good practice, because let's say that we've used this variable like tons of times.
Yeah.
Well, we don't want to have to change that again and again and again and again.
Right.
Let's make a variable. Let's actually write it here first, and then we'll go back. So we'll write limit here.
Okay. So we're changing that 500 to limit, which...
That's right.
Am I going to go to the top to do this?
Exactly. We need to make that variable. We need to define what that word means, because otherwise we'll get an error.
Yep.
And I don't know, let's put like 200.
Yeah, so a little less
Something
than half
like
of what we had before.
Oh, actually, I've got an idea, Dom. I've got an idea.
Go ahead.
What we'll do is we'll keep that at 500.
Okay.
So let's keep limit at 500.
Oops.
But then what we'll do is we'll change what the size begins as. So we'll change size to like 200. And so now we'll be going between 200 and 500.
Right, okay. So our total range has been limited.
Yes, but we're going to have a problem. Can you predict what it's going to be? I'm looking at line 13, and I'm seeing what our problem is going to be.
If size is less than or equal or greater than or equals to limit, which is 500, or size, which is 200, size equals 0, which we'll never reach.
Well, we will reach it. We will reach it because we're just going to go all the way down. But when we reset, right, we're never going to go back to 200. If we want it to go between 200 and 500.
Right, that's it, yeah.
So that needs to be the number 200. Or really, it should be another variable, like the opposite of limit, maybe a minimum.
Right, yes, because same thing as before. If we're going through and we've got we're calling that multiple times in the code, we would have to go through and change it every time if we don't set up a
for it. Exactly that. So it's just best practice.
Yeah.
So should we call it minimum or yeah?
Oops,
cool, and that's fine. Yeah. You noticed actually when you put min, it highlighted in blue because min is a function in its own right.
Okay.
Obviously that's fine as long as we don't call it that. That's fine. So we'll call it minimum. We'll do that as 200. In fact, tell you what, we can be even cleverer. We can put size there.
Nice. Up here. Yeah. So if we do end up changing size, it will do it automatically for us as well.
Exactly.
Beautiful.
Exactly. Isn't that satisfying, even though it's just simple text?
Feels good.
It does feel good. And even though I've done a fair bit of programming now, and I'm full disclosure, like I wouldn't call myself like a professional programmer or anything. Like I'm nothing special when it comes to being a programmer, but I'm very, very well practiced in FUZE.
Yep.
And so I'm quite good at using FUZE, and I've gone quite far with it. I understand some stuff that I never thought I'd be able to understand, quite frankly. And it's only because of coding that I've been able to do that, especially when it comes to advanced data stuff or advanced maths. I now understand maths that I never thought I would understand.
Wow.
And never thought I would see an application for either. And there's something, maybe a few in the chat, if it's the correct age range. If in your maths lessons, I certainly had this a lot. I would think, well, where do we use this idea?
Yeah. What's the application for this?
Yeah, exactly. Like it's all very sort of detached from like practicality. And if you're learning like trigonometry, it's like, right, yeah, but why would I want to know how long this hypotenuse is when why? Yeah. Unless you're just asking me math questions. Well, if it comes to game design, like these things become eminently clear. Because if you want to do, something like a first-person game where you've got, for example, like bullets or some sort of projectile leaving some sort of launcher, something like a Splatoon setup, like balls of paint leaving a launcher.
Yeah.
well, suddenly you're looking at trigonometry in terms of how that works.
Right. Yeah.
But when you get the hang of it, it makes it very clear, and it suddenly becomes not terrifying. It's not this weird esoteric thing that only exists in textbooks. It's actually just a very obvious practical description of how the world works. And so yeah, just it's something that I'm very passionate about. That just code makes maths easier, 100% easier.
Yeah,
you don't have to be a maths whiz to be a programmer. But if you do learn to code and you keep going, you just will end up being better at maths. There's just no way to avoid it. You will.
Nice. Yeah, I think having that immediate feedback for me is always really helpful because, knowing that I've done something right or done something wrong, it really helps me get better with that maths. Yeah, so I can absolutely believe that. I did see Arch saying, Node-on are basically functions with silly faces. Yeah, I'm starting to realize that as we're setting up more functions, I can see the similarities. And Voxy, also linking back to GBG, says, GBG is keeping some notions of trigonometry in my brain. Yeah, so that kind of application of those things that are otherwise just quite nebulous as concepts.
I would be scared if Dave wasn't versed in Fuse, and then I'll admit it's my first time using Fuse, but you're doing great. Oh god, that would be funny. Actually, yeah, I mean, I don't really know what I'm talking about. Actually, so far I've been winging it.
Yeah, you got lucky so far.
Oh dear.
So, am I right in thinking that we would need to put minimum here, where my cursor is currently?
Absolutely right. Absolutely right.
Because we replaced. We had what was it? It was 0 in there before.
Exactly. So now our program is actually really quite sophisticated.
Yeah.
And then we've gone from just having, really, really simple things. And yes, what it's doing is fairly simple, but we're really coding here, right?
Mm-hmm.
Instead of having node-ons and things being dragged to places, you just write the thing you want.
Yep.
So you create a label and you just write it in the place you want. You're just freely changing where numbers are. And it becomes quite freeing, in my opinion, when you get the hang of it.
Got it, yeah.
Okay, so let's see if this works.
All right,
it should start at 200, get to 500. I'm not sure how quickly it's going to do that, so I mean, we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Because our rate is currently 4.
Yes, so it'll be certainly increasing a lot less quickly.
Yeah.
Okay. It won't be 10.
Yeah. All right, let's give this a go.
Tell you what, let's try 2 first.
2?
For the rate, yeah. Which is still twice as quick as it was before. But it's going to be a lot safer in terms of things changing quickly on the screen.
Yeah. Okay, nice. All right, let's give it a go.
Yeah. Okay. So we get to the minimum, 200. There we go. It's working perfectly.
Yeah, beautiful.
Cool.
There we go. So our new limit was set, our new rate was set, and we are getting through those color changes much more quickly now, and keeping it more readable in the process.
I'll tell you what. Let's change. Let's go back into the code.
Mm-hmm.
Let's change our limit to 300.
Our limit 300.
Yes.
So it should now remain on screen, I guess.
Yeah, it's going to keep it all on screen. It's going to move through the colors a bit quicker, but it shouldn't be like super fast. It's just going to be like a more sort of pulsating, sort of undulating text.
Yes.
To use a couple of there we go. Now we're into some nicer colors.
Nice. First time we've seen the purples. Yeah.
Exactly. We've got to represent. So this will go through a list of 120 odd colors, and they're all actually describable. Describable. They're all findable in the help. In fact, this is probably a good time to show it. Actually,
sure.
Could you bring up the keyboard for me?
Yeah.
Either Control K or click in the left stick.
There we go.
And let's go to the Help tab there at the bottom. You can also access this if you press F1 on the keyboard. Let's go to Help. And then what I'd like you to do, so this is taking you to it's taking you to what it thinks you want, because there's like a slightly sort of smart thing going on. Obviously, it's not that smart because it hasn't quite got it right, but it thinks that you wanted to know what the min function does.
Right, that's really cool.
Yeah, so it will work if your cursor is either in the brackets for a function or if it's in the text for a function. It will just take you straight to that page because there's a lot of functions, and sometimes finding it isn't the easiest thing. So it's just a way to speed things along.
Nice.
If you use the right stick up and down, then you can actually scroll through this, and it will give you an example of what that is and the arguments or the parameters that it takes. So it's saying when you use the min function, you get a result, and you need to give it two numbers, and it will give you the lower of the two numbers. And then there's an example there in the code to show you how it works and what you might do with it.
So handy to have this as something you can pull up inside Fuse as well. It's not something you have to refer to elsewhere. Or,
well, to go even one further, if you click in the left stick at this point, this brings up the keyboard, and now you can actually type with that on screen.
Oh, nice.
You can use the right stick to scroll up and down in the in the thing still, but you can type on the keyboard, and it will still be typing in the code.
Yeah,
so it's quite helpful. So if you press the left stick again, that's it. Perfect. Right. So if you go to command reference.
This one? Yeah.
That one, yeah. And then you want to go down to, so this is basically a big glossary of all of the functions categorized. If you go to colors, this is going to give you a big list of all the colors. So you can see all of these different values is what we're going through when we're cycling through these things.
Nice. I'm scanning through for bisque right now.
All those things. Yeah. You'll find it. Keep going. Keep going. One more. No, one more. There it is.
Bisque has been spotted.
I mean, look at how many shades of just I love that feature. I love it. It's such a good feature on the Switch. It really is. Okay, so I'd like to congratulate you, Dom, here because you've done very, very well.
Oh, thank you, Dave.
And you've gone through this. You had a bit of a. I mean, obviously, we went into the shallow end, but rather than sort of spending time there, I've been pulling you along, and we've gotten into the middle of the pool, fairly quickly.
I've still got my life vest on, but we are going out to deeper waters. My toe is kind of, if I bob up and down, I can just feel the bottom of the pool still, but it's getting.
Oh, yeah, careful because there are things down there swimming around. Terrifying sea monsters. So I just wanted to show you, just as an example, this is how you access the help. You can read anything from here. You can look at all the tutorials. You can copy and paste code from the tutorials right into the editor.
Nice.
And try it out and that sort of thing.
Beautiful.
There's a tutorial on all the things that we've covered, and it goes into some quite complex stuff. For example, how to program a 3D camera, how to set up vectors and use them, how to create a game from scratch.
Yeah.
Like a little platformer with jumping, collision, this sort of thing.
Yeah.
So this is all written by myself, and you can imagine my northern-ish voice reading it to you as we go through. And
I do like the Vec what?
Yeah, there are small moments where I have my fun. You gotta have fun.
Yeah, it keeps it fresh for the author and the reader.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I do try. It's trying to be very, very accessible. So sometimes, if you're an experienced programmer, it might not be quote unquote for you, right? If you know what you're doing, then just go right in, flex your coding muscle, right? But if you want to go into real detail and have if you want to familiarize yourself with something that you're not too sure on, definitely I would recommend reading a tutorial.
Wonderful for people like me coming from zero with this stuff. It's so useful. I did have a read through some of the basic ones ahead of time, and really so clearly laid out and written. It was really easy to get some basic understanding in there through that.
That means a lot. Thanks very much, Dom. So I'd like to definitely, before we even think about packing up, I would like to get something happening on the screen that is a little bit more complex. And if you're now reaching levels of fatigue, I wouldn't mind typing it up myself if you would rather do that.
Yeah, let's switch over to your screen. If you got Fuse up? I
do have Fuse up right here. Yeah.
Beautiful.
I'm just secretly playing some other game. Let's go into VideoDojo project here.
So, chat, what you're seeing on screen is Dave's copy of Fuse currently. I think I've trimmed off an ever so slight bit at the top of your screen. So just give me 1 second to fix that.
So I've just moved things down a little bit. Now, obviously, the resolution is not going to be quite as good as yours. So,
Yeah.
I mean, if you'd rather do this on yours, absolutely fine. But you've been doing a lot of heavy lifting here, and so I feel bad basically.
Well, what I think I'll do is if I can multitask a little bit, I think what you could do is go through it, present it to me and to chat, and if I can type anything out as we go along, I'm happy to do so.
Yeah. Sure thing. Okay, so let's get something a bit more visual happening on the screen, right? We're going to make a couple of variables.
Cool.
We're going to have an X and a Y variable for a location on the screen. Okay. Now, our screen resolution, I'm going to sort of speed you along, is 1920 1080.
Right.
That means there are that many pixels on the X and Y axis of our screen. So if we want the middle of that, we would need to take that number and divide it by 2. Okay? Now, if you don't want to remember 1920 1080, or when it's in handheld mode, it's actually different. It's 1280-720, and when you put it in the dock, it changes. There is a function which will tell you this number. It's called gwidth.
Very handy.
So graphics width, this means. And so we can take that number that is returned by gwidth and divide it by 2. And we can takegheight as well, which is exactly the same thing, but for the y-axis, right? And we've got a position on the screen. Now, I'm going to make our main loop. We'll put one of these here. Also, I apologize if my keyboard is a bit loud, because it is quite satisfyingly clicky.
Yeah,
so
it's got some nice thockiness to it.
If it annoys, then I can move my microphone away and try and type as far away from my mic as I can.
It's not too loud, and I bet chat will probably even enjoy it.
Yeah, some ASMR code.
Can I ask, just very quickly, am I right in thinking that if the gwidth... Oh, okay. Maybe if this is too much of a question, feel free to say we'll come back to it, or whatever. But if the gwidth was within the loop, would it then be able to know whether you've switched between handheld and docked mode?
Hey, now that is some very, very smart questioning right there. Indeed, it would. So
okay.
If you had gwidth and gheight in the loop, they're going to be changing whenever you undock or dock the switch.
Yeah.
Now, we'll get into some problems if we start going that way, because if you've written your program expecting one set of numbers for the resolution, and then it changes halfway through playing, then suddenly all the numbers that you've used are going to be wrong. So, unless you've used gwidth everywhere and gheight everywhere, so instead of ever using a number, you use like some derivative of gwidth or gheight, then you're going to get some problems. So we can actually fix the resolution to certain things, and this will stop that from happening. So we could do something like this. This is going to set up the corners of our screen as being 0, 0, and then 1280 and 720. So basically, this just means I want the top left corner to be 0 on the X, 0 on the Y. And I want the bottom right corner to be 1280 on the X, 1280 on the Y.
So that would mean that if we switch between docked and handheld, it's going to remain at that resolution, meaning that our numbers within the code don't get all wacky.
Correct. This is actually essentially it's setting up our own screen. So now we could actually never use gwidth again, and we can just remember that we are using 1280, or we could even set up a little variable for this. We could have screen X, screen Y, screen width, screen height, or whatever we wanted, and then set those up. This is something that you see a lot. But in the interest of keeping things simple, I'm going to avoid it. Because we know what resolution we're in. It's not going to change during this program, and so we don't need to worry. But it is a very important thing, and there are tutorials in the program about this. There's also an even simpler version of that function, which makes it even easier. But yeah, Thank you very much for taking the time to humor me on that one as well. Not at all, mate. Please go right ahead and ask on that. I'm looking at the stream output, which is lagging behind. I need to look at my actual screen. Oh yes, yeah. Okay, so circle is an example of a function which has a particular series of things. If I press F1, we're going to go into our help, and you can see that the information in the brackets of circle, it's expecting an X, a Y, a radius, a number of points, the color of that circle, and whether or not it wants an outline or not. Okay, so let's have a look at that. So we need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 commands. 6 parameters. We need an X and a Y, which we've got variables for. It needs a radius, so the size of the circle essentially. Not quite, but let's just say it is for now, right? Let's say that's going to be 32, right? This is fine. And then we will actually make these. Let's make it a variable as well. Let's do that. We'll make a R variable.
Okay.
32. We're going to put that as an R, and then it needs a number of points. Now, this is a weird one. This is actually to sort of optimize drawing a circle, because you might realize, or you might not, on a screen, there's no such thing as a truly curved line.
Yes.
It looks like it is, but really it's just dots. It's a grid. It's a very, 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 very tiny grid. So it looks curved, but it's not really. It's actually steps. And so even though a circle has no sides, it has one side, actually it kind of does. And when you're actually writing the code that draws a circle, which we could do, it just involves some maths, you need to know that. You need to, you want to know how many points around it you're going. So we can put a number of points in here. Now, if we have a very, very big circle and we put something like 12, then it's going to be obviously not a circle. It's going to be a dodecahedron instead. If we put 3, we'll get a triangle. Right? If we put 5, we get a pentagon. If we put something like 32 or 64, then it's going to basically obviously be a circle. It's going to be as smooth as it's a 64-sided circle, and it's not big enough to really scrutinize that. So let's just put something like 64.
Do you mind if I just quickly ask a question from chat here?
You can indeed.
Voxy asked, does that mean you can draw hexagons and stuff with this function?
Absolutely right. If you want to draw a hexagon, we could put that. We could just put 6.
So we could just put 6, yeah. Gotcha. Thank you.
There's a FUZE program in the demo actually that uses that exact thing by just modulating that. It's
oh, cool.
Turn things into. In fact, we will do it in the code. We'll do it a bit later. So right, let's get going fairly quickly. I'm going to let's do magenta. That's a nice color. Magenta. And the last parameter is whether or not we want an outline of a circle or a filled-in circle. So if I put false, this is saying, no, I do not want an outline. If I put true, it's saying, yes, do outline mode, please.
Gotcha.
Okay, so this is going to give us a circle on the screen, right in the middle of the screen. I'll tell you what else I'm going to do, actually. I'm going to get rid of the FPS meter, because it's not something that we need to worry about. When you're writing a program that's far more involved, and it's a good idea to have it on the screen, but we don't actually need it on the screen right now. And yes, no disco. I'm not going to use Bisq for this one. I'm going to go against the grain, the corn, the wheat, and not use Bisq. I'm going to use just a nice bright color. I've got a soft spot for magenta. It's nice. Okay, now that's quite tiny, so let's make it a bit bigger. Let's do a radius of 64, not 364. That's too big. Let's do that. Okay, that's fine. Right. Okay. All right. You know what? You've convinced me. I've had enough. Yeah. But I tried to go outside of Bisq territory, but I tell you what, we can't. It's too frightening out there. Let's just go back to our nice, comfortable Bisq realm. Okay. In fact, I've got a better idea. We'll clear the screen. We'll do the screen in Bisq. And we'll make this a nice navy blue. Okay? So we'll do that. How's that?
Look at that. That's a nice combo.
Yeah, I've got some interior design abilities, Okay, so how do you think we would move this circle around the screen?
So would we do something similar to what we did to move the text?
Exactly that. What variable would we need to change? Which of the variables could we change?
The G width and the G height? Oh,
Well,
no,
actually,
sorry.
Go on. You've got it.
Did I have it?
Well, it's not G width and G height. You're kind of there.
What could
G
it
width and G
be?
height, that's what's giving us our initial starting location.
Right.
The variable that tells us where the circle is X and Y.
Yes,
Right? Either
together.
of these tells us where the circle is on the X and Y axis, but that's only because we're using them here
Mm-hmm.
in the function.
Yeah.
Right, if I used the variable r here instead, well, now r is the variable that describes where it is on the x-axis.
Right, which would be 64.
It's not just what you call the variable, it is how you use it. It's where you use it. So if we take x and we do plus equals 1, then we're going to see that circle start moving around, right? It's going to move to the right. Simple as that.
Nice.
Now that's because we're clearing the screen. If I did not clear the screen, like this, now obviously it's not going to be bisque anymore. So let's just put a quick clear bisque at the top just so we don't lose that beautiful bisque background. So let's put that there. So the first thing it ever does is it just makes us a nice bisque canvas.
Yep.
Key takeaways: always tab code inside of loops, always color bisque. This is good.
Disco is learning.
Hashtag bisque gang. I like your community though.
They are so on board.
Everywhere I go, I leave a wake of bisque, and it is bland. Bisque tastes like a custard cream. That is what bisque would taste like. And if bisque could taste, it would. A good old custard cream. Okay, so we're not going to clear the screen anymore inside our loop, which means we'll see all of the old positions.
Whoa, we're creating a snake.
Exactly. But we'll run into problems if we try to use that as a game mechanic, although I've seen it used to brilliant effect. Now, let's just bring that back in, and we'll see. Let's make it a bit faster. So we'll do x plus equals 4. So we're going to move the ball around a little bit quicker, right? It's going to go off screen much quicker. Okay. So once it's gone, it's gone.
Yep.
It's now off the screen. Yeah? So how would we make it reverse the direction?
Okay, so we were using the minus previously.
We need to set up an inversion node on.
Yeah.
But
there we go.
With code, right? So if we want, so the direction that it currently is going in is 4. It's a positive number, right? It's going 4 pixels every frame to the right of the screen.
Yeah.
Because we're increasing that x-axis position. If I do minus equals 4 here, it's going to move to the left, right? Because we're decreasing that x-axis position. So the number that actually describes, because we could do plus equals minus 4, and that's the same, right? So this number here is our direction, and it's our rate of change. So we'll set up a variable for this. We'll do dx. So direction x, or delta x, if you want to use a fancy maths term. Delta just means how much something changes by. It's a fancy maths term for something really simple, which is actually what I find to be most maths terms, really. They're just fancy words that mean something really simple that put everybody off. And it's a shame that we have to use them, but we don't have to. So yeah, I'll tell you what, we'll also... we'll stick to just the x-axis right now. So what would I need to write then to make it change direction when it hits the edge of the screen?
Are we going to have to do an if?
We're going to have to use an if. If x is bigger than...
Yeah.
And how do we know how big our screen is?
From the x and the y variables at the top.
That's where our circle begins.
Oh, yes.
You've given me the opposite answer to last time. Now I want you to give me the answer that you gave me the first time.
G width and G height.
Thank you. Okay. G width. So if x becomes bigger than G width, then get our end if in there, and then we'll take dx and we'll do times equals minus 1. Yeah. So same exact concept as we used before.
Yeah.
Exactly the same. We're just reversing a number. We're using our inversion node on. So when it hits the side of the screen, it's going to bounce back. But you're going to notice something about when it reflects. What do you notice about that?
Let me see.
We can make it even more apparent if I make the radius a bit bigger. So let's do 128, much bigger. You'll see that it's not quite right.
Aha, because it's from the center of the circle.
Exactly, exactly. So what could we do to this part of our if statement? If x plus
the rest of the width of the circle.
Yes.
Which is 128 currently.
Yeah, that's our radius, right? So radius is the distance from the middle to the edge. Yep. So if the right-hand edge of the circle hits the right-hand edge of the screen.
Yeah.
Or what? Can you get a gold star here.
Or the left-hand side of the screen.
How do we describe the left-hand side of the circle, though?
Oh, the circle.
If X...
Is it X minus?
It is indeed.
Is it?
Yes.
Nice.
Exactly. If the left-hand side of the circle is less than 0, which is just where the x-axis begins,
Yep.
then we reverse the direction. And now our ball will perfectly bounce off the side, and it will perfectly bounce off the left-hand side.
Nice.
Okay. So to make this happen on the y-axis as well, all we need to do is use a programmer's best friend. It's called copy and paste. So we're going to take that and copy it, and we're going to change our x's to y's.
Change that over to y.
Now we're moving on the y-axis as well. But then we'll also need something very, very similar to this if statement, but with y's instead of x. And instead of g width, we're going to use g height.
G height, yep.
And we'll use y here. And we want to change that to a y as well. And so it's exactly the same.
What was your combination for highlighting?
I've got a problem. Can you spot the error that I'm going to get?
Ooh. I'm sure chat has spotted it immediately.
I've got one extra... Voxy knows exactly what I'm trying to make.
Oh, the extra end if.
No, not the extra end if. We have an end if because we want one end if for each if.
Each if. Okay, yeah, makes sense.
Do that. That's all we want. If this happens, we're going to Chalupa Joe. We're not going to be able to do that because this is a circle and not a box. we could if we made it. If we made it a box, I'll tell you. Maybe we could change it so it does exactly that. But
I'm not seeing what we've got too many of currently.
It's not that we have too many. It's that I've gone one step ahead. I've assumed that we've got a dy variable,
which we don't have currently.
Which we do not.
We only have the dx. Right.
Let's just make it the same. And let's see if it works.
Hey, look at that.
Now, Tom, do you know of any games that might operate using this fundamental mechanic?
Now that seems like a real Breakout clone to me.
It seems like Breakout. It seems like an even more classic, even more legacy game.
Of course. How could I forget? It's Pong.
How could you forget Pong?
I know. I jumped too far ahead.
This is how Pong works. It's just moving a circle along an x and a y axis and checking its position. Nice. And then obviously we would have a couple of rectangles on the screen. We could get them moving up and down.
Yeah.
We could make it in about 15 minutes if you wanted to, but it might be a bit much.
Amazing.
I want to show you a couple more things just that are quite fun to see. So okay, so this is one thing. Let's also tell you what we'll do. We'll say what we'll do is we'll say let's make a variable for our number of sides. Technically, okay, let's just call it sides. Let's call it sides. We'll start it off at what, I don't know, 10, 12, and we'll say when we hit a side, sides will now be a random number out of 12. But of course, if it chooses 0, we have a problem. So we need a minimum here.
Right. Yeah, we can't have 0. We can't have 0 sides.
No.
Right.
We can't have 0 sides. We'll just see nothing. So what we're going to do is, someone's playing a game on my friends list there. We're gonna, but they're not playing Fuse, so I'm upset. Obviously,
disappointed.
Or GBG, so they should be playing either of those two brilliant games and not this Dragon Quest nonsense. I'll say that I actually love Dragon Quest. Yeah. Okay, so we're going to add a minimum number of sides. We're going to say, okay, I want the minimum number to be 3. So let's say it picks 0. We add 3. So now it's 3.
Yep.
If we pick 11, we add 3, we get 14. So now we've got 12 options, but we're going between 3 and 15. Sorry. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Our maximum. So we're going to do the same thing here. So if we hit either of these, sides equals random 12 plus 3. And what we'll see now is whenever it hits a side, it's going to maybe change shape. Oh, it's not changing shape. And that's a good... Oh, it's a good test of why. Why is that? Why might that be? Why is that?
Because we've already defined the number of sides.
Correct. We're using 64 sides no matter what.
Yep. Thank you for that handy highlight there.
You use the variable in the function and it will work. So now we get different shapes.
Yes. Nice.
And we get a pentagon there and all sorts. Okay. So now let's say we don't want this to be a filled in circle or a shape. I'll tell you what, let's also not clear the screen anymore. Let's see what this looks like.
Whoa. Nice. That rocks. We're getting into the like demo scene kind of stuff right here.
We can make some pretty cool stuff happen
that rocks.
by just messing with shapes and numbers and stuff. And it is pretty fun.
Yeah. Oh, and the fact that we're
fun.
changing the number of sides every bounce means that shape was altering ever so slightly every time it drew.
Also, when we change direction, let's also, instead of just timesing it by -1, we'll times that -1 by a random number out of 1.0. I'll tell you what, let's also add 0.1 to that. So we're getting a bit more complicated here, and we're speeding along.
Yeah, of course.
So we're also adjusting the speed of this. So it's going to reverse, but it will also either stay the same or it will kind of reduce. Tell you what, let's add 0.5. So it might increase the speed, it might reduce the speed. I'm going to just copy and paste that so we don't have to do that again, and I'll just change the X to a Y.
What's the shortcut for copy and paste, Dave?
Oh, sorry, yeah, you did ask me that before. Okay, so it's either just the standard text controls like you would on any keyboard. But there is a faster way of doing it on the Joy-Cons. So if you hold down ZR, you'll see that the command bar changes to select copy, cut, paste, copy, cut, paste, delete, and then so while you're holding ZR, you can move the D-pad around, move the cursor around, and it will select. You can then, while you're holding it, you can cut. You can paste, you can also undo and this sort of thing. So it's all on the command bar there. Undo is if you hold ZL and it will change to undo and redo. And also you can press up and down on the D-pad to move around the program. It will jump to the next function that you've declared, all sorts of things.
Gotcha.
So
Thank you very much.
Tricks that you can do. There is actually a video on our channel called Fuse Tips and Tricks that I would direct people to if they want to know a few of these little little tips and tricks.
I'll see if I can find that as you're going through this next step.
Okay, so if I run that, it should... Oh, we're going to get some weird issues there. Oh, it's got stuck at the bottom corner.
It's the screensaver that can only hit the bottom.
Yeah, so there you go. That's how you do it. You hit the corner and it's done. Why is that? We're going to get a problem because immediately... let's just... Okay, I think it's because we're interacting with this -1 in a way it doesn't want me to. Let's do that. And let's do that. And then we could always just do it afterwards. Because we do still want to add dx. Yeah, that's fine. So if we take dx and we times it again by another random number, we'll do the same sort of thing.
I just linked the Fuse Tips and Tricks video in case anyone's looking for that one.
Very, very nice. So I should say, actually, I haven't actually tried this exact thing.
We're in uncharted territory here.
Same thing again, yeah. So it's okay. So that at least makes me feel sane because it's not that's a problem. I think what it's doing is we're getting it's completely losing that number. So it's becoming 0, and then we're not moving anymore, which is really annoying. So what we'll do is we'll say, let's just times it by -1.1 instead. So now it will definitely speed up. Let's do that. It will definitely slightly get a bit faster. So we're going to invert the direction, but had to make a channel, otherwise known as Toxabunny, actually, in our community, is exactly right. It's slightly going off the edge of the screen and then reversing constantly. So it's always going backwards and forwards. We'd have to move our our logic around a little bit,
Mhm.
so that it didn't just immediately start to go backwards and forwards. But I'm conscious of time, so I don't want to spend
Yeah.
too much time
No, no.
fixing with.
Also,
So yeah, we've got some stuff, weird stuff happening.
it's looking
And I
beautiful.
think it's now.
It's
got into a really
it's
strange
gone
place.
haywire. Mr. O makes a wonderful point in chat as well, I think. Just to teach you guys, even the devs could have trouble with code. It's a matter of trial and error. I think that's really true every time. You know, you might be trying something new for the first time, and it may be that you're pretty confident that something will work, but there's something, just one step that you've either missed or you've kind of considered in a slightly different way to the computer would, just like we went, just kind of referring back to the, you know, you give me a shopping list, you need to explicitly specify that's the end of the shopping list. That kind of little thing can be enough to change it, and there will be some trial and error there for sure.
Such a great point, and I want that to really be maybe a main takeaway. It's like, I can sit here and just get that wrong freely. Like, it's not a comment on your intelligence. It doesn't mean anything more than just like, oh, there's an unexpected result. Let's just mess around with it, see what happens, and try and learn something from it. There's no, it's not a race, and you're only against yourself. So yeah, it's So actually, I will just comment on one thing, because so Scrubs says that random 1 always outputs 0. That is correct, but random 1.0, which is what I used, will give you a random number between 0 and 1 as a floating point number or a decimal point number. I believe that had to make a channel is exactly right on there. I would just need to adjust the logic a little bit. I think I would need to put this after here, so that it doesn't immediately flip around and we actually do move. But if it doesn't move enough, then we're going to get some issues. I'll just need to restrict the numbers a bit more. We could keep messing around with it, but I don't want to spend too long on it. It's just one of those things that we could definitely fix it. But I think that the point has been made anyway.
Absolutely. No, I mean, amazing that you put together something that looked so visually appealing in such a short amount of time, even with you going through and explaining the steps. That was super, super quick. So really great for those who are, you know, a few steps beyond where I am currently, to kind of reassure them how quick and easy they'll be able to produce something pretty cool looking.
I'll add one last thing to this.
Yeah.
We're going to... So I'll just to show that the random 1.0 definitely works, actually. I'll use the random 1.0. You can also use the alias of RND if you are feeling particularly tired and you don't want to type random. RND will give you the same results. So here what I'm doing is I'm setting up something called a vector, which I mentioned earlier on. This is, you can think of it like a coordinate, right? It's just multiple numbers treated as one thing.
Okay.
And you've got a random amount of red, a random amount of green, blue, or no, green, RGB, a random amount of green, and a random amount of blue.
Right.
And then this last number here, it's actually 4 numbers, and it's this last number is the transparency.
Okay.
So if I put 0, you're not going to see it. If I put a 1, it's going to be a nice solid color.
Gotcha.
Right? Now that's actually, in this case, if we did 0.1, this is really just tantamount to brightness, because if I do a very, very dark color, it's not going to be that you can suddenly like see through it. It's actually just going to blend the colors together, so it'll look like maybe mixed with bisque. Right? But obviously, if we had something underneath it, then that would be apparent. But I'm just going to leave it as 1 for now, so it's fully opaque. The maximum is 1, the minimum is 0, and I'm using the random part in there to change that. Now I'm going to take that random color part, and what we'll do is we'll make a variable for this. Okay, I'm going to call that color. Put that here. We'll start it off as navy.
Yep.
But then we're going to redefine that when we touch the sides. So color equals this. I'll just take that line again, put it here. So now when we hit the sides, we'll change the number of sides we have. We'll slightly speed up, and we'll change the color of the circle.
Okay.
The shape. So it's going to, now it's nice cyan sort of
Oh,
color.
yeah.
Light green. It might even become bisque, in which case you're going to see nothing. Actually, I'll tell you what we'll also do. I might just change this to a black background, so it's very high contrast.
Oh yeah, I like that. It's got a kind of
It's
old, like a movie production logo kind of build to it now. You know what I mean? Like at the start of a film.
Yes, it really does, actually. Yeah, like the old BBC thing.
Yeah. Need to get some analog synths in there as well.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Now we're talking. Mate. Yeah.
Can I ask a question
like
from chat? Sorry, Dave.
No, go on.
I just wanted to ask a question from chat, which I think I'd be personally interested to know as well. Voxy was asking, is there a reason why it uses decimals, referring to the colors, instead of a value between 0 and 255, like usual?
Well, you get way more colors this way.
Okay.
Right, because now it's obviously it's kind of negligible because the difference between like 0.38496 and 0.38497 is not really that perceptible, but it technically is a different color.
Right.
So
okay.
you actually get a ridiculously huge amount of colors with this, but it is also a bit of a choice in that like 255. It's one of those things that's very intuitive to people who understand a few things.
Mm-hmm.
And I think actually had to make a channel, mentioned it in the chat as well. 0 to 1, we personally felt was just a little bit easier to understand. Yep. It's like, well, why is the limit 255? Oh, because that's the maximum value that you can represent with 8 bits.
Right.
It's like, okay.
Gotcha.
What's that?
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, well, let's get into all that. It's just 0 is the minimum, 1's the maximum. You can put any decimal in between there, and kids like to go 0.1356, whatever it might be.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you very much for explaining.
No problem. So yeah, that was just showing something a little bit more visual.
Yeah, nice.
And we could just to show just even one more little thing, if you don't mind me fitting it in.
Not at all.
I'm going to get rid of a few things. We'll keep that there. We don't need this anymore. We won't need that. We'll keep that. We don't need this. We'll keep that. We don't need the circle. I want to make something a bit more like game apparent, like something that's a bit more, apparently practical for games. And I want to show off something that's in FUZE as well. So we're going to make a sprite. Nice.
Okay.
Something a bit more gamey. Right, let's say. So we're going to create a variable. Forgive me for moving a bit fast here as well, but
not at all.
In the interest of just getting lots of stuff demonstrated, and just to show how quickly you can make something happen. Right, I'm going to make a variable called img, and this will be short for the word image.
Yep.
Okay, so image equals load image. This is one of the functions in FUZE which it loads an image. Now, where does it load it from? Well, it loads it from our media library.
Nice.
And this is what I'd like to show you here. So if we press F2 here, this is going to take you into the media library. Now, this place is all of the artists that have got their work into FUZE. So we can go into any of these and choose something and use it. So, for example, if we wanted to go into, for example, Untied Games here, we can have a look at all their different work. They've got tons of cool stuff, different pixel art stuff, different like level tile sheets, sprite tile sheets. We've got, now not all of them are just 2D. You can find 3D assets here as well. Like, for example, if we go into Kat's work, so Kat is actually a member of FUZE, one of our beloved members, and also has written a few of the projects in the FUZE demo library as well. And we've got some great little 3D models. If you wanted to make a little racing game, you've got some racetracks that you could load in, the little 3D model, bear and cat races and crocodile races.
Yeah, these are very nice. Cool. And I recognized, was it the little robot from your game as well on the previous screen?
Yeah, well, Colin. Yeah, that is Colin the robot. So Colin, named after a friend of the FUZE, the whole FUZE team.
Nice.
And, someone who is always in our game jam streams as well.
Amazing.
Much beloved person is Colin. Mega shout out to Colin. Also very much inspired by a particular piece of sci-fi that I won't mention, but I'll see if anybody notices. Scrub says, "Hey, those bowling assets look familiar." You don't say. Indeed. So this is it's a good window into like the behind the scenes of Super Funky Bowling and this sort of thing.
Absolutely.
And some basic shapes and whatnot. So that's 3D models. Let's What we want is just a nice and simple 2D sort of sprite thing, and I've got an idea of what might work actually. Let's take. I'm going to go back into Untied Games, and let's go into let's go Space Shooter, and we will take. So we've got all sorts here. You can for example, like animated tile sheets. We can have a look at that. So you could use.
It's great that you can see the animation as well.
Yeah, it's really helpful. And you can also select animation ranges and just play that animation if you wanted to. All sorts. Like it's so magical just watching these animations come to life. I love this sort of thing. I'm going to take the ship. I'm going to take a nice spaceship here, number 0. I'm going to take this one here from our player ships. So what we're going to do is press the Y button and paste this whole sprite sheet into our code, and it's going to take that file name and put it in the load image brackets. Just like that.
Easy.
Now, next, I'm going to create a sprite. Now, this is a special type of data in Fuse, and they have some slightly different rules. It's all explained in the sprite system document. So if you want to know all about how the sprites work, go to Sprite System, and you can read all about Create Sprite, the Sprite camera, how to make a map, how to do all these sorts of things, and it will tell you all of this.
Gotcha.
But we are going to start it off with this function called Create Sprite, and I'll just call it, I'll tell you what, I'll call it player. So player equals create sprite, and now we can do stuff with this. We can take our x positions, and so rather than use just x as a variable, what we'll do is we'll say player dot x. Okay, when you make a sprite, you get all these extra functions out of it. So it gives you all of these properties, they're called, and you get them after this dot. So they're like related things to the sprite. You can think of it as like just properties of that sprite. So player.x is where that player is on the x-axis.
Okay.
Now, sprites use a slightly different coordinate system to the screen. They use what's called game world coordinates or map coordinates. Now, they are set up so that they're basically the same as the screen, but 0, 0 is the middle of the screen. So if we say player x is 0, player y is 0, there you go. It's in the middle of the screen. That's where it's going to appear. Now, the whole .x, .y thing, I appreciate this isn't the most obvious thing in the world, but again, it's all described in our sprite system document. You can look at the sprite properties. It will tell you all of the automatic properties that are made. You get .x, .y, .speed, scale, colors, the red, blue, green amount, the animation speed. All of this is just something, it's like stuff that automatically happens when you make a sprite.
Yeah.
So when you do player equals create sprite, you get all of these things and it controls that object. So it seems like a little bit tricky at first, but just think about it as a variable. It's just another variable. It's just related to our player. It does something specific for our player.
And the documentation for that is easily referenceable at a glance as well.
Absolutely, yeah. And you can read that while you're coding if you want. There's also there is a tutorial. There's actually a couple of tutorial videos on the FUZE Arena channel from quite a while ago now, actually. But that goes into all of these sprite commands as well.
Yeah.
And it will tell you about the basics of sprites too. I definitely recommend people check out the channel, and we'll have more tutorials coming up as well. So I'll leave the dx and the dy in there for now. And we'll get rid of this. And I'm going to use a function called draw sprites. And we'll keep our clear in the loop just so we can get movement happening. And I'm going to run the program, and you'll see our sprite appear on screen, but it's going to be very small. Absolutely.
Is it imperceptibly small?
Imperceptibly small. In fact, it doesn't even exist yet. I'll tell you why it doesn't exist yet. Because I have forgotten something. It does exist. It just hasn't had the image attached to it. I beg your pardon. I do beg your pardon. Let's do that. Let's fix that. So what we did is, like we said, oh, here's an image. Here's a picture I like. And then also make a sprite, but I don't want these two things to be related. We need to tie them together. So we're going to use a function called setSpriteImage. And this will attach an image to a sprite. So the things that setSpriteImage wants is the sprite that we're talking about and the image that we want for it. So this is just assigning that image to our player sprite. Now
Pairing
we
those
will...
together.
Yes.
Mhm.
But what we're going to see is actually we don't just get one ship, we get all of the ships.
Right, because we had the whole sprite sheet.
We've got the whole sprite sheet. Now, the tile that we want was number 0, so we can just add that to set sprite image here, and it will be number 0.
Gotcha.
Or we could use the sprite property of the animation frame. Either one is perfectly fine, but this is just a really easy way of just setting a particular tile for our sprite. So we're going to do that. It was also really small. So let's increase the size. We'll say player.x scale equals, I don't know, 4. We'll make it 4 times bigger. And the Y scale will also be 4 as well. So now it's 4 times bigger, and we'll see our ship on the screen.
Hey, nice.
Pretty nice, pretty nice. Okay. Right. What should we do next? Should we get some, maybe get some controls in here?
Yeah, that seems like the logical next step.
dx and dy then. What we'll do is we'll go into our main loop, and we're going to use another function. And to get the controls, we need to use a function called controls, would you believe? But we need to assign this to a variable, because what controls does is it returns to us the state of both of the Joy-Cons that are in control slot 0. So we could have up to 4 pairs of Joy-Cons attached, and we can get the state of any of those with 0, 1, 2, 3.
Nice.
So using 4 paired Joy-Cons and using the Joy-Cons as separate, the horizontal layout for the Joy-Cons, you could make an 8-player Fuse game if you wanted to.
Very nice.
Which would be quite cool. But yeah, we're only concerned about the first pair of Joy-Cons here, so let's just say control 0. And we'll assign this to a variable. So I'm going to say C. C for controls. We'll just leave it at that. Now, similar with sprites, so controls gives you quite a lot of stuff. It returns all sorts. So what it does is it attaches to that variable each of the buttons. So for example, if I said if C.A, then this is going to happen when we press A.
Right.
We could say if C.A is true or is 1, because true and 1 are the same thing.
They're kind of interchangeable in this context.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. That's not the same in all programming languages, but in Fuse, it's very much just an easy way of looking at things. So 0 is false, 1 is true, and that's how it works.
Nice.
The equals we have to use when we compare two things, because a single equals means I want to assign this. So I'm saying like put this into this variable.
Yeah.
And so we don't want to do that. That's what we use when we say like x equals this 10, or speed equals this, or size equals 10, that sort of thing. So if we say equals, this means compare these two things and tell me if they're the same.
Okay, so currently you're saying compare if the controller A button is equal to 0.
Which it would be if we're not pressing it.
Yeah, because that's off.
Exactly. Yeah. Now, we could say this if it is being pressed, but there's another shorthand way of saying this, and that's to just not say any of it. We can just say if this is happening. And the reason we can do that is because it's like saying this. If 1, right, if true, which is obviously true, so it's going to happen.
Yeah.
So we're just essentially using that. If we say if false, right, that won't happen because it's not true. So if C.A will be, if C.A will happen if we press the A button. But instead of doing that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the sprite's X position, and I'm going to add the left stick X axis.
Okay, so controller left stick X axis.
Yes, so if I wanted to control it with the right Joy-Con stick, we'd use RX.
Yep.
Left is LX, right? And we'll do the same with the Y axis. But we're going to have to make this a minus. In fact, we'll just do minus equals. The reason for this is that the screen goes from low at the top to high at the bottom. Because the pixels are drawn on a screen from the top left. So it's all 0 is at the very, very top left.
Right.
Sorry, 0, 0 is at the top left. And the joystick is probably best to actually illustrate this if I go into a tutorial on the controls. We can find an image that talks about the stick here. There you go. So you see that little graphic there on the right. The stick is actually a number that goes from 0 to 1 or to -1, depending on which way you're pushing it. So it's just an X and a Y axis, which just moves between left and right, or 1 and -1. So the closer it is to 1, the more we are pushing it to the right.
Yeah.
The closer it is to -1, the more we're pushing it to the left. Yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah,
So
makes
if we
sense.
do this, I can now move the sprite around.
Hey,
But
nice.
it's very, very slow. It's very slow. So that's because our LX and LY values, I'll show you. I can print them actually. I'll put it down here. In fact, we'll do it with print at. So I'm going to say print at this X and Y location. Print at this X and Y location. Right. So I'm printing this in the top left and then just underneath that, so you can see both the numbers there.
Nice.
In fact, it's a little bit off the screen, so I will just move it along a bit on the x-axis, and oops, I'll make it a bit bigger as well. We'll do it as like size 50. Right, so now you can see those numbers quite clearly, and as I move the stick around, you can see what these are doing.
Yeah.
So we're actually never really moving the thing by much. We're just it's only ever moving by a limit of 1, which is barely any pixels at all. So we could just take this and multiply it by 10.
Yep.
Or by any number. We can get rid of this now, and we can move around much quicker.
Nice. That seems like something that I would be familiar with, and I'm sure chat would be familiar with from GBG. You can multiply an output, which would typically just be 1 at a maximum. So yeah, I think chat will be familiar with that.
So I'll show you one last little thing and see if you're familiar with this. So this is getting into some very, very simple physics.
Okay.
So you'll notice that when we run this program, if I push the stick around, whenever I let go, it will immediately stop dead in its tracks. That's not how a lot of movement works in games. We want it to decelerate and slow down nicely.
Yep.
So we can mimic that by just using variables to behave like physics. And this is all physics is. It's just labeling numbers and making them behave in particular ways, and then looking it up on Wikipedia to see how it works and copying and pasting it all into your code. And then boom, you've got physics. No, that is not what Scrubs did. Scrubs wrote his own physics engine in 3D.
Goodness.
To make Super Funky Bowling work, and it is a very, very impressive feat indeed. But I imagine that he would have consulted some internet articles, I'd imagine, because it's just, unless he's an absolute genius of the highest possible caliber, in which case I already have taken off my hat to Scrubs, but I'll buy another hat and take that off as well. So
we'll put an extra one back on just so you can take it off again.
I'm going to make a couple of variables for velocity. So we'll make xvel and yvel. Right. And now instead of adding to our player x and player y, we're going to take xvel and yvel. Now, if we do this, we're not actually going to need this times 10 so much. We might. I'll tell you what, I'll just change it to times 1 for now, so it's just the same. We'll see how it turns out.
Okay.
What I'm going to do now is I'm going to take my player.x and I'm going to add the velocity instead of just the straight up values. Right? So all we're doing is separating these two things out. But when I let go of the stick, it will stop adding to the velocity.
Yes.
Okay. So what we'll do there is to make it decelerate, because what we're doing effectively now, I'll show you actually. If I just touch the stick, it's going to start moving, and I've let go, but it's still moving.
Oh, you've got no brakes.
That's right. We're effectively moving, we've kicked a football into space, if you like, Or we're moving on the slipperiest imaginable floor of infinite slipperiness.
Either one of those sounds like the perfect prompt for a game, though. Kicking a football into space is a good starting point, and the slippiest floor imaginable also sounds like
that's a great name for a game. Slipperiest floor imaginable. Kicking the ball into space is essentially the premise behind one of our FUZE community members' incredible games. They're actually in the chat. They have been known as Vinicity or Jens. Sorry, Jens. I'm brutalizing it with my British pronunciation. But he made a game called Golf in Space, which is
beautiful.
You like fire a ball out of your ship and it goes into orbit around planets, and you have to use that orbit to land it into various like black holes. It's so brilliant. It was for a game jam. It was for one of the game jams. I think it was for one button only, because you have to just press it at the right time, and the ship is always rotating and it sort of fires out. It was a good laugh. So anyway, back to this. We're going to decelerate our velocity by taking the X and Y velocity, and we'll multiply it by a number that's less than 1. All right, so we're going to take so let's say that our velocity is 10. When we let go, we're no longer adding to it. It's going to be multiplied by 0.9, so it goes down to 9. And then on the next frame, we're not adding to it. It's going to be multiplied again by 0.9, so it will go down by 10%, then 10% and 10%. So this number is our rate of deceleration. Gotcha. So if I now push it and move, it will move a little bit, but it will slow down.
Yeah, there's just that subtle ease out at the end there.
Yes, exactly that. If we change our movement speed now, you can maybe see that effect happen. So when you let go, it's just a nice sort of rate of deceleration.
Nice.
Which is really, it's so satisfying to do that. And it's just plugging another number into somewhere else. I mean, it's just, treating another number like its velocity and watching the magic happen, because this is just how cool coding and maths can be. I love this sort of thing. It gives me the warm, fuzzy feelings. I did see a comment in the chat that I will answer, and that is, how do I make it move and point in the way that it is moving? Sorry, right. How do I rotate the ship to do that? Well, there is a property of the sprites called rotation, and we can set this to anything we want. If I set it to 180, right, it's going to be the other way around. Okay. If I set it to 90, obviously, then it's going this way. Now, what we need to do is to take our left stick and treat it in a different way. It's this is going to use a function which is a little bit fancy, but it's one of those functions that you don't even need to. I'm going to tell you a secret. You don't actually need to understand this to be able to use it. It's one of those awesome. This is how understanding is truly gained, and I will die on this hill. If you just see how it's used, try it for yourself, see what happens, and then use it in a few different applications. And now you've got this like practical knowledge of the thing. And then when you go and look at how it actually works under the hood, maybe you look at the maths, you've got this foundation from which you can understand that. If you go to the maths first, then this is going to look really odd.
Yes.
Okay. Not ATAN, sorry, ATAN 2. So this is taking the arc tangent of the position around this unit circle that is described by our stick X and Y axis. And you don't need to understand any of that. All you need to know is this is the function that you use to make this happen. Okay.
Wow, that rocks.
Now, when we let go, it's going to reset. So actually, we want to do this only if we're pushing the stick. And we could do that in a couple of different ways. There's a few different ways to do it. I'm noticing that it's moving around very, very quickly there. So I'll just make it a little bit less extreme, and you can see.
So nice.
And so we can move it around, and it's gonna. But as soon as I let go, it's going to reset. But if I added an if statement that just around this, that was like, oh, only do this if you're actually pushing the stick, which we could do. We could. Oh, I'm gonna have to do it now because
everyone in chat's going, do it.
So we're going to take the length of the vector that is described by our stick, which basically just means if you're pushing the stick in any direction, which is more than some amount. So if I say if you're actually pushing the stick, then do this. Now we could do this in a different way. I've used a slightly fancy way. We could wrap this in an if statement that said this instead: if c.lx is greater than 0.1, for instance, and c.lx is less than, sorry, or there, or c.lx is less than minus 0.1, or c.ly, and so we could combine four things into one thing, and that would give us the exact same result, no different whatsoever. But and this number that we're describing here is our dead zone.
Right.
Or we can just combine the stick as an X and Y axis and look at the length of the line that our stick. It basically, if you imagine the middle of your joystick when you're not pushing it is saying 0.
Yep.
And then as you push it around towards the edge, this number becomes closer to 1. And that's what this length number is talking about.
Right.
If we're pushing this stick in any direction, but it's right at the very edge, so like if you're pushing it all the way up or pushing it all the way up and left, either way, it really doesn't matter, then the length would be 1. It's going to be the maximum possible distance that thing can move.
Mr. Observador sent a $1.55 super chat. Mousy cheese maze on FUZE4.
Mr. O, thank you very much for the super chat. Sorry, Dave, for the interruption. Mr. O says, Mousy's cheese maze in FUZE4 when? That would be interesting. Thank you very much for your super chat and your support, Mr. O.
So yeah, you can see now when we let go of the stick,
look at that.
It will remain in the position it has moved.
Yeah, beautiful.
So, that's actually quite a complex thing that we've achieved there.
Yeah.
And maybe, I mean, I've kind of sort of gone off on one and let it cascade because we're at this point in the stream. But yeah, we could keep adding to this. We could get a lot of things going. And the reason actually I wanted to show you this particular thing, if I'm going to be totally honest, is the reason that Mr. Observador has just alluded to.
Oh. Because
I believe, from what I've seen of Mousy's cheese maze, you use a very similar movement.
Yes.
To that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, when we do make Mousy's cheese maze,
yes,
we'll use this exact technique. So
beautiful.
I wanted to just sort of show it off as a bit of a hint.
So nice.
So yeah, that's there's some basics for you.
All
right,
Dave.
And now let's not clear the screen anymore, and let's just do this.
Oh yes, it's the classic. My PC is about to crash. Let me drag the window around.
Exactly. Oh, you've gotta love this stuff. Let's also make the scale a bit bigger and just make it really silly, make it like 12 or something. And
yes. Ah, beautiful. Dave, I know that we are coming up to the end of time. Well, that seemed like a very big statement. What I meant to say there, time today.
Yeah, we better stop, I guess, if it is Armageddon. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I suppose. Can I just say, and I'm sure chat will agree, thank you so much for not only taking the time to join me on the stream today, but to go through every one of those steps. I know that, I'm coming from basically zero here, and I really appreciate you taking the time to explain each of the things that we were doing, but also going on to show everybody a little bit more of an advanced process there. Because I know for sure there are people in the community, people that have been building in GBG who have learnt so much more about the kind of behind the scenes in GBG, and while they may not code, they're very familiar with the kind of functions that you were talking about and the kind of processes that you were talking about there. So I am really appreciative of you going, a few steps ahead there to talk through that and to show us something really immediately that shows some of the strength of Fuse and how fast it is to put things together like that.
It's an absolute pleasure. To be honest, it's gone so much quicker than I thought it would, and I'm now immediately thinking, but you didn't show them this, and you haven't shown them arrays, and you need to show them this, otherwise they're going to think, how do I do this? So it's this has been a lot of fun. It's been very fluid, and it's really, really worked for me. So if you ever want to do this again, we can definitely do that. I
Absolutely,
think
it
this
would be.
setup works really well. It's a pleasure to be on your channel, Dom. You're a fantastic host.
Oh,
You do it all very, very well, and your community seems awesome. And yeah, I've got just nothing but super positive to say. Just thank you so much for showcasing us. Um, you know, we are a really, really small team, right? I
mhm,
just want that to be clear to everyone. Like,
yeah,
Fuse is a team of like 5 people.
yeah,
Okay, we're a small team, and at the time that we developed it, for the beginning of development, it was like a team of 3. And so it's been a project which has been very, very close to our hearts for a long time. It's something we're deeply passionate about, and it's just so cool to see it get to this point and to have these sorts of relationships build, and to get a chance to show some enthusiastic people as well. It's all just so cool, and yeah, I can't thank you enough. It's been a lovely evening, really has.
Dave.
I'd be doing this anytime.
Right back at you. Yeah, it's been a treat, and it's been so lovely to see chat get excited as you were going through each of those steps there, and seeing what what Fuse is so powerful at, and what it's so wonderfully tailored to. And when we first made contact, the thing that really drew me to speak with you and see if we could get something going was the fact that it was very clear that you guys were not only passionate about Fuse, but passionate about teaching people to to code and to share that knowledge. And that was something that is so wonderful to see, because I think it's such an important skill, and having some a framework that so many of us are familiar with, games, something that draws us all together, being the cohesive web there, is really, really magical.
It's so cool. I mean, we actually, because we did have a chat obviously before the stream, just to make sure everything was working, and we did say, oh, if there's any downtime, then I'm sure we'll get a chance to talk about the games that we love and stuff. And it's like there's been zero downtime whatsoever. It's all just been learning and demonstration. So yeah, I mean, mate, I'd be happy to come on anytime you wanted and chat about whatever, really. If you wanted to talk about games that we love, because yeah, it is something that is the thing. Like you say, it's the web that connects us all. It's this love for all of the games, all those individual games. Like when you had the music on at the beginning, I was seeing loads of people appreciating the specific music, and it just gives you such a big smile on your face to see people appreciating this stuff and to see the enthusiasm. And it's the same at a workshop, I mean, it's such a cool feeling when a bunch of kids go like, oh, right, that's how that works, or like, oh, I can do that. It's like, yes, man, that's exactly right. And yeah,
Absolutely.
it's just so cool to be a part of. Yeah, it is.
Yeah, it's a treat. And you did it so perfectly. I mean, you make it look effortless. I know it's a lot of hard work to get to the point where you can communicate these skills and teach these skills so eloquently and so fluidly, because I was asking questions that were a little bit different to the original plan in parts too. So yeah, thank you so much, Dave. I can see lots of people in chat saying they would love to have you back. So
I'm seeing that as well, and I just want to, I'm blushing a lot. It really means a lot. It is so nice, and thank you to everybody who's been so positive in the comments. It just makes such a huge difference. It's so cool. Yeah, I think, if you don't mind, I will invade your Discord server.
Absolutely.
And
Evade away. Yeah.
And it'd be nice to become a part of the community as well. It's
sure.
Yeah, it's been great.
I'm sure everyone will give you a very warm welcome. I know that you're very pressed for time, but please do let everybody know where they can get Fuse, where they can find you and your tutorials. I know they're linked down in the description, but if there's anything you want to mention.
Yeah, no problem. So, I mean, you can find Fuse on the eShop. You can also find something called the Fuse Player on the eShop as well, which I haven't mentioned, but it is because there's been a few questions in the chat actually throughout, which is this free? Now, I'd love to say yes, but of course, it costs a lot of money to make things free. There's something that we get asked a lot actually by the kids at the workshops, because this sort of free economy it's so pervasive now. But you can only make something free if you've got microtransactions. And
Yep.
we don't want that. We want it to be a thing that you get, and that's that, and you've got this thing forever, and you never have to worry about buying, like, some more room for your programs or something, or you get 30 lines for free, but you've got to pay 50p for every additional 10 lines.
Oh no! I feel like by even uttering that, Dave, you have there is some unscrupulous mobile app developer that just started getting very excited.
Oh no! Yeah, maybe. I hope that hasn't just I mean, Sod's Law dictates that's just going to appear now, and it's going to do really, really well and make millions. Yeah, no, it's not free. We'd love to be able to do that, but what we have done is we made a very, very cheap version, which doesn't actually let you write code. But what it does do is it lets you access something called the Showcase Gallery, which you can access if you go to the share section on Fuse. You can see, now my frame rate is going to be terrible here with the stream, but it might take a second or two to access the server. And if there's quite a few people accessing the server right now, it might take actually a little while, or it might just crash right now, and that'll be the first crash of the evening, which would be fantastic.
Hang on.
Oh, brilliant.
I could switch over to mine. Oh, there we go.
Yeah, it's all popped in. Depending on the time of the day, it might take a little while longer. Like I said, we're a very, very small team. We don't have like this, amazing, super mega high-tech server. But I mean, it does the job. And on here, you can access a rotating series of games, which we will constantly update. And sometimes we get ones coming back onto the Showcase Gallery, and we're always adding new ones and sort of trying to find things that are going to be awesome on there, which is never usually that difficult because people are making incredible things. And it's a really cool thing to aim for as a new sort of Fuse user, to get your game on the Showcase Gallery, which is just something that people can download. So I can select one of these and I can download it. Now, I've already got all of these on my Switch, obviously. So it's going to ask if I want to overwrite it. And I could say yes, and then open that program. It will take me straight to the code. And this is called FuryBox by a Fuse user called Andy Waldron. And it's a fantastic little game. But yeah, you can download them. You can check what's going on. And this one is
this rocks.
Sort of an impossible game sort of like thing where you are shifted around this world and you've got to avoid obstacles and try and get as far as you can, which is I was looking at the stream then, so I kind of lost the track. So I won't show off too much because then people can have fun with that as well. So that's another thing that I'd like to just show. And the Fuse player is like an 89p version of Fuse, which lets you access that. And so it also lets you read all of the help content and look at all of the models and stuff. So you can see what sort of tutorial content there is there. You can even read the code for the games if you want. It also comes with all the games that come installed default in Fuse as well, like 3D Crazy Shooter and all those ones that we had a look at the beginning there.
You can dip your toe in the water with the Fuse player, it's called.
That's right. Yeah, you can dip your toe in the water, and then if you like what you see and you want to have a go at the coding yourself, then you can pick up Fuse. There's a question actually I will answer, which says, how do you search for games people have uploaded? Currently, there is not just an open search feature. This is to effectively just make it less worrisome on ours and Nintendo's part. But there is, in the full Fuse product, you can submit a game to what's known as the program sharing. And so I could do this with any one of my programs. I could take the program that we did today, actually. And in fact, I will do this later on, and I will send you on Discord the game code.
Nice.
So we could take this VideoDojo project. I could upload this to our server, get a little code that is attached to that game. It has to be approved by us. And then people can download that game, whoever has Fuse.
Nice.
But obviously, it has to be approved by ourselves. You can also then browse the whole catalog of uploaded games on the FUZE Arena website.
Yeah.
There's a section called the catalog on there, and you can check that out. So the initial question was, where can people find you? So I'll say on the eShop, check out the Fuse player, go to fuzearena.com. From there, you can access our catalog of uploaded games. You can find all the awesome announcements that we're making about things like Super Funky Bowling and Made with Fuse, the Game Jam information, and of course, it would mean a great deal if you subscribe to our channel. That would be just unbelievably
Let me
cool.
see if I can get a link to that to pop into chat as well.
Oh,
Sorry,
amazing.
Dave. Keep going. I'm going to try and find that.
I mean, that's about it. You can find us at FUZE_Arena on TikTok. You can find us on YouTube, as I've said. You can find us on Instagram at FUZE Arena. We're on Twitter as well. We're on all of the places. And you'll be able to find us easily. If you just Google FUZE with a Z, an arena or not, you'll be able to find us. And we would love to have you in our community. We'd love to say hello.
Absolutely.
Always cool.
And if, as Dave said, if you're even just a little bit curious about Fuse and what can be done, definitely do subscribe to Fuse Arena. I've sent a link to the channel in the chat because there's lots of great stuff on there. I had a treat watching through the Fuse Game Jam. It was specifically the most recent one, the Fragile one that I was having a look through. Yeah, Mr. Owen chat says little communities get together and the handshake.
Yeah, I like that.
Absolutely. Oh man, Dave, we have gone over time, so I really appreciate you sticking around for longer than we planned. But
that's absolutely fine. It was only just like a rough estimate, really. But I mean, this is all very important stuff, and I'm very happy to be given the chance to say all this. So it's oh yes, we do have a Fuse channel. Oh no, do you have a Fuse channel in your Discord? Sorry, I've misread the message. We do have a Fuse Discord server as well, which you can find on the arena. Well, I'm not sure if that will become a reality. I don't know. That's
we can definitely get a topic going, Arch. I don't think we have anything in there currently, but we absolutely should. I did see over the course of the stream a few people were saying like, I'm already sold, I'm picking this up. So there will be conversation about this, I'm sure.
That's absolutely awesome. To all those people, we are a very easy to contact bunch of developers, and I, actively and personally help many users with their problems. If you have any issues with your code and you don't really fancy like messaging a whole load of people and sort of putting it out there, find me on Discord, send me a message. I'll happily read people's code and try my best to fix problems. And now that's obviously famous last words, because if like 2,000 people all start doing that, then it might take a while to get through them. I don't like the idea of leaving anybody in the dark, especially when it's something that is not super simple. We try and make it as simple as possible, and it's always simpler than you might think if you're worried about it. But at the same time, like, it's not so simple that it shouldn't be seen as a major achievement to make any progress whatsoever in this sort of discipline. And so wherever you are in your coding journey, it doesn't matter. If you're just learning what an if statement is, fantastic. Like, you rock. You absolutely have smashed the day if you learn that. And if you are a super programmer and you've just figured out how to implement your mega physics engine, then equally you rock as well. But it's about your journey and not like comparing to everybody else. I believe very strongly in that, so I want to say that again.
No, I think a really important thing to say. And the other thing that I am realizing just from that little bit that we touched on was, I think understanding elements of code and the way that this kind of stuff is done allowed me to kind of better understand some of the Node-on that I've been using in GBG without actually really having a kind of a completely robust understanding of what they're doing behind the hood, and vice versa a little bit. Having those references in GBG when you were explaining stuff, I was like, oh, that sounds super familiar. Yeah,
that's super cool. And I imagine that if we do more of these, if we do a similar thing and we start developing something like the basics of a little game, then that will be happening again and again. It's great to have that bit of context and that foundation for learning. And that's the idea with this as well, is like, once you've gotten the hang of some simple coding, like when you go to something like C, or you read some pretty complicated looking code, you don't just immediately feel like you're drowning. It's like, oh, okay, there's an if statement, there's this, there's a loop. I can sort of parse that a little bit. Suddenly it's not just terrifying, and you can start to make some headway. So it's a really good point, and I imagine that'll be happening a lot more as we go. And yeah, so always ask me as well if there's a node-on that you want to understand how we would do that sort of thing, because all these node-ons are just they're basically functions.
Yeah. Exactly.
What the user said in the chat. Yeah, the
Yeah.
node-ons are functions with little faces, and you can create your own functions in Fuse. You know, you write your own whole little routines. We didn't go into a lot of stuff, obviously.
Yeah.
Because it's the tip of the iceberg.
Scratching the surface.
It is quite an iceberg, but I mean, it's great to be on that journey, and it's such an empowering thing to learn. Honestly, it's just when these things click, it's so satisfying. And yeah, it's just great to be around enthusiastic people who get that and want to learn and been so positive. So cool.
Very, very nice. Dave, thank you so much. Chat, can we get some cool gamers for Dave before we wrap up? Yeah, I cannot wait to delve deeper on this.
I look forward to it too, Dom. Should I just disconnect from the call myself? Or
yeah, feel free. Yeah, and
you might want to change back to your
very good point. Yep.
Or just
whoops.
Leaves up. There you go.
There we go. Nice. I was copying along as you were going, which has now been.
I was going to say, hang on a second.
Which has been revealed. Nice. Well, Dave.
Your chat is awesome. Love it.
I know it's a wild waterfall of cool gamers now. I will speak to you again, I'm sure. Hope to see you on Discord and see a few of our guys in the Fuse Discord as well. Cool. What a treat. Thank you so much.
Very much. Look forward to it a lot. And thanks again. It's been a real pleasure. Oh. Guys are awesome. All right. I'll leave you to it then, Dom. Thank you again. And all the best.
Yeah.
Have a nice week.
You too. See you, Dave.
Bye-bye.
Oh, man. What a treat to have had Dave with us this evening. And we got even further along than I was anticipating. I mean, Dave showed off some of the slightly more complex stuff. And I know we were starting at the very, very basics here. But it's so cool to see the little ship moving around and having the ease out on the movement as well. It's going to be a bye-bye from me now as well. Apologies for anybody whose questions we couldn't get round to today. As Dave mentioned, I think initially we were planning that we would have a bit of maybe some downtime as we were going along, but it was pretty action-packed. So either you can ask your questions on our Discord or save them for next time if Dave would like to come back. Such a lovely message from Dave on the FUZE Arena channel as well. Can't thank you all enough for being so lovely, welcoming, enthusiastic, and generally awesome. Was a real pleasure. Can't wait for the next one, whenever that may be. Thank you so much again, Dave, and thank you, everybody, for joining us this fine evening. I do want to rest assured, everyone. I know we just celebrated the 100th GBG community stream on Saturday. Don't fear. I'm wanting to explore as many of these avenues as possible because quite often people do ask whether I have any experience with this or if I've got any suggestions for where people can explore next. But GBG is my home, absolutely. So anything like this will always be in addition to, not in replacement of, but I'm sure everyone knows that already. Cool. All right, chat. I'm gonna go lie down now because I am fused out in the best way possible. So have a good rest of the evening. Foxy says Dom doing the traditional Nintendo statement of, oh, it's not a replacement, just a third pillar. No, Foxy. All right, I will catch you all soon. Bye-bye. Oh, hang on, let me do a fade out. Let me be a real fancy streamer here. Bye-bye.